the capital program committee to order December 19th. It's 8:05 a.m. President or ex officio Libby Gibson, Richard Hussey, Peter Kaiser, Nat Ohl, myself, Peter McKecker, and Christy Kickham will be joining us shortly, and Jason Bridges. Can I get a motion to approve the November 29th minutes and hold the 6th, 7th, 13th, and the 14th?
So moved.
Second.
So that's unanimous consent. There's no members of the public here, so there's no public comment. We are going to, I guess we could review, we could review, on our agenda is review outstanding items and issues. I believe I got an email yesterday, late afternoon on that. I'm not going to go through each of those because I didn't do a printout. I don't have it. I'm kind of concerned about how we're getting information and the timing. But that'll come up at a later point in the meeting. I did stop at the school. I spoke to them. There's some questions about funding that I wanted to speak to Brian about. We haven't had a chance to be able to speak. They've been very busy over there at finance, understandably. I guess the recap would be that there's going to be there's a few matters there. One is who's going to be using the expanded and improved building. It would be, Michael and Diane have committed that is for the AIP, is that?
The special education.
Yeah, I wasn't sure the words you're supposed to be using. The special education office administration and support. No actual student support or staff, and no actual students in the building. They're just not set up for that, even if they were to make the changes or the improvements. They're looking at approximately 1,500 square feet. It would not just be for those particular personnel who would be transferring over from the other space that they're using. It would also be for improvements in their own space that they need in a conference room. So, from my understanding, is that it's a relatively small amount of space that would be used, approximately 600 square feet. Relatively small amount of space, which I guess would be a little bit smaller than a classroom. And it's not space that they would be, if they move, it's not a loss or an increase in rental space, is what the net was for that particular use. If it were other things and more expanded, if the building were changed and it was larger, then it would be an increase. Sufficient enough that there could be another use in the space that they moved out of, all the different services. But they feel that with having moved the special ed office, admin, and support staff, that they will have centralized all the office staff in one building, which is what their goal is. So just to address that, it may not address concerns fully, but just so you have the information. And that was on that. We discussed the Bacchus Lane playgrounds, and I think what that boils down to is that it's clearly a phased process. They are waiting on the land bank to some extent to move forward. Certainly they need to transfer the land. They do have a memorandum of understanding in place to begin some work. Some of that is on hold until they get a little bit more clarity and direction. They would prefer to, and they think that they could reduce the cost substantially. It's currently an FY19 and FY20 ask of approximately $1.2 million, and they believe that they could bring that down some $200,000 due to efficiencies of mobilization, eliminating escalation, and the bid or the engineering estimates they felt were a little generous. So what they were hoping to do is actually, if there was some, and this is something I want to discuss with Brian and Libby, but what they're hoping to do is, if there was some way to use the school bond money for that, or a portion of that, the school bond authorization, as a funding source
For what?
for the playground work and/or the certain aspects of the playground work, the capital portions, and also the building. This isn't a matter of whether it's authorized as a capital project, it's a matter of what the funding source is. So that's, I think that's a discussion that maybe I need to get better technical understanding of from you all before I get into it as a committee matter. But I just wanted to bring it up that was part of the discussion we had. And I think with the playgrounds, the concept is that if they can get it all authorized at once, they could go forward with it, and it would be a rather substantial savings. So I just wanted to report back on that. Transportation, I did not. I stopped to see Michael. He was not available. He's still not available. So I've got nothing to report there, which is somewhat concerning, I think, with respect to just the final recommendation on that and addressing some of the multi-use and the bike path matters that are Board of Selectmen concerns and goals. We did get back information on various things from the DPW, one which was the aerial lift, and that is meant to replace the bucket truck. And my understanding as a quick read of the email is that there'd be no change in none of the services would be diminished, or I should say cut back in terms of planning, so tree service would be ongoing. It's meant to replace that in full, and then also to add additional flexibility for DPW work in its daily works. I think that's it, at least from memory. I didn't get an update on the L8. I don't believe, Brian, did you happen to see anything in there?
I have not seen anything yet, Mr.
So,
Chairman.
so that's our outstanding items and issues at this point. Is there any comments, questions, concerns? Okay. So we're going to go, I think we've gone through the summary worksheet with rankings, top to bottom. And we're at the point where what we'll do is, as we discussed at the last meeting, I think we'll just do a call, see if any of these are matters that somebody wants. What we're doing is, at this point, is we're discussing, I think we haven't had enough discussion is during the process, in part because we haven't gotten ranking sheets together and received them, so we could, the original intent was to be reviewing them at the next meeting. So I'm a little concerned about discussion, but it is where it is. Like this is what it is. You adapt, overcome. So what we're going to do this morning is go through the list, and if there's any items that someone wants to discuss with respect to the recommendation being a negative recommendation, or you think you may be leaning that way, or you have a question before, this is the last chance, I guess. We didn't meet yesterday. So this is the last chance to do that. January 4th, we need to have, for Libby, we promised ups, downs with dollar numbers as a kind of a form of a draft recommendation. And so I'm going to need some pretty clear direction from you guys. I'm going to, right, so let me outline the process and then I'll make one brief comment and we'll get started. I'll go top to bottom. If anyone has any particular requests that they feel that they might vote no on in terms of a recommendation, just let me know, and then we will at the end discuss it. Or again, if you have any questions, just say that one or yes or whatever, and we'll check it. And then once we kind of have a concept of how many are questionable, we'll organize those. I'll organize those a little bit very quickly, and we'll sort through those with discussion, relying not only on our memories and our subjective narrative, but also the rankings and the priority overlay, and where we see the risk columns factoring in, so we could use those tools. I'm going to abstain from making a recommendation on any of these requests. I'm not comfortable with where we are in the process and how we've been doing it. And I will seek to address that between now and January 4th. And hopefully that will happen. And if not, you know, it'll form a statement in our final recommendation. But in any event, so from top to bottom,
This would be a good time to mention Alexander Haig.
well, you know, I think
I brought a, never
Nixon
mind.
actually did something wrong, where I'm just trying to preserve the integrity of the process. So,
But I'd be an idiot to myself if I didn't say I respectfully disagree that I feel and I can look at any of our committee members, we put a lot of time in. And I think that I know I'm ready, and I would not want to vacillate if we don't have to. I think that we have put a lot of time in this year, and I think that's a huge kudos to not only our committee, but the support team that we have, and all of the department heads.
Exactly,
yeah.
100%.
And I think, you know, I would be remiss not to respond, Peter. There's no one here saying that we haven't received support. There's no one finding fault with any individual for not doing something. We are a town in the midst of severe growing pains. We're a capital program committee in the midst of growing pains with a change in our form and our format. And everything else that goes along with that. You know, there's all very positive things to be said, and my abstaining from voting on these is not a statement of a fault on anyone's part. However, my role as chair, and I mean, unless, you know, if you want to use that Alexander Haig analogy or metaphor, is you know, I'm trying to do an integrity of process so that, and I'm not going to use a train analogy today because it would be insensitive with everything that's going on in Seattle, God rest people's souls.
10 minutes.
There are things that we need to be doing that I feel as a chair for integrity of process that there's some things that I have some questions on, and I wouldn't be voting in good conscience by not voting on a particular request. At the same time, I don't want to single out a request as the chair and not vote on it, so I'm abstaining from voting in a sense just so that I'm not singling out a particular request. It's not an indictment of the process. It's not a statement that somebody's, you know, not helping us. It's just a matter of, as opposed to selecting out a couple that I still have questions or concerns about in terms of our committee's role being fulfilled, that's why I'm abstaining. So I mean, just so you're aware, it's not and so everyone's aware.
But what if the committee in totality, just it's an easy conversation, we approve of everything? What's going to happen? Where do we go from tomorrow?
Well, I mean, I'll still look at, you know, I have a role to play as the chair to make sure that in terms of the integrity of process, our goals and objectives under the financial policies and procedures are met. And I think to the extent that's reasonable, that's reasonable. And when I say to the extent that that's reasonable, I mean, we are where we are. We have schedules that have conflicting priorities. Town admin and finance can only do so much. And I can only, as a chair, and our committee can only expect so much. However, I do have some questions that I would like to get resolved. And if that's what I would try to do between now and January 4th. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be, but, you know,
Okay.
I want to make sure that they get resolved.
Great.
And it wouldn't, look, abstaining from the vote, in many chairs in small committees abstain from the vote, period. It's not Robert's rules, but it's how it is, and then they vote to break a tie. So again, I don't want to overstate that. It's about following through on some aspects of integrity of process. Do I stand behind what we've done here? Yes. Do I think that we've been thorough? I think we've been as thorough as we possibly can under the conditions we're under.
Good.
So
So
is that,
makes me feel better.
Jason?
I have a question. Being
Yeah.
the first year on Capcom, for you guys who've been here doing this before, how does this compare to other years? Do you feel as comfortable
night
in the
and day.
process?
Yeah.
Or
Right,
do you
yeah.
feel more informed?
Night and day.
I'm just trying to get some
Yes.
feedback.
Please.
I feel really informed, but it's different. I'm in it
Yeah.
a little more. I'm looking at this.
Yep.
I'm sitting in NPDC meetings
You're
and
going to birthing class.
going to birthing classes. Yeah,
Getting in it.
Practicing saying the word board.
yeah. So I feel really comfortable, but I'm just going to get feedback from you guys who've done this the last couple of years.
I mentioned this to Steve before the meeting. I've done this now for 4 years, and I've been like the nice, quiet church mouse sitting in the corner, kind of observing. But I think what would be helpful for me, having gone through this new approach, which is pretty comprehensive, it would be helpful for me to have immediate discussion on the merits, as opposed to waiting to the end. I mean, we really haven't discussed a lot of these major projects, like the DPW garage. That's huge.
Well, individually, I think
Yeah.
we've
Yeah. But as a group, I don't know where everyone is. Not that it should color my decision, but
Well, I think some of that was intentional, so we don't color decisions, but at the same point, we do need to have discussion as we go. I had hoped, and again, this is just a function of where we are, it's not an indictment on anyone, is that we, the rankings took a lot more time than anyone had hoped, certainly Julia. And the idea was that we would have those to bring back to the next meeting, have a 10 to 15 minute session, and be able to discuss them while everything was fresh in our minds. And then that may help with the discussion points that you were talking about, Richard, is just as a general assessment as opposed to which way I'm going to vote, but just to make sure that everyone has a more well-rounded information in mind.
just to go back to the last meeting, Peter, when you described the school addition and you were describing what went into, as a member of the building committee, your idea on how space would be used in the new building, just having that bit of information changed my mind about the addition.
Well,
So that kind of discussion is relevant and helpful, I find.
Well, here, it's just little stuff too. Yes, the other day we spoke about, and forgive me, I don't have it in my mind, but what is the request that was zeroed out that we discussed at the last meeting that had a low ranking? And we didn't realize that it was zeroed out until 10 minutes into discussion. We didn't have I haven't had a chance to review the full breadth and depth of the worksheet, the summary worksheet, to see how things relate. And it's not so much an individual request, again, it's about how the overall picture relates and that we have discussion on it. And now I don't see it in here. The only one I see in here zeroed is the Sparks Ave.
No, I think it's still on there.
It was the central office edition.
Oh, it is. Okay, so the central office.
Yeah.
So we spent really great, productive, vote-changing discussion, and it was something that isn't even being recommended to fund. So I'm not going to, force you guys to say uncle on that. I just wanted to clarify where I was and why I was there. And Peter, I respect your position, and I hope you understand mine. And it's we're not going for impeachment hearings, but be that as it may. Peter, you'll get that in your more.
You'll get it in the report?
No, it'll be in your bio, the bio, the
That I
Alexander
read,
Haig
yeah.
bio.
depending on the bio.
Oh no, he stepped in for Reagan. No, he stepped in for Nixon.
No,
In the end,
Stepped in for Reagan.
Yeah, it was when
it was when he was
when
shot.
he was in a shot. Forgot there was a
but he was in the
VP.
Nixon
Yeah.
administration, Alexander Haig. Yeah, okay,
But
that's
he
what it
he
was.
moved up the chain.
He was
Yeah.
active military.
Yeah.
All right, so top to bottom, guys. We're going to start with the.
Just before we start.
Yes, please.
Would anyone find it helpful if the town talked about some of their recommendations? The low rated? I mean, what's the goal here? Are we trying to hit a number that we've got to back out of the ask list?
Look, my goal at this point is to go through the list, find out if anyone doesn't. I think our number needs to be, it can be independent of what the town recommendation is. So my goal is, in terms of process, is to go through the list, find out if anyone feels there's something they don't want to recommend, and then we know it's like taking a test. You do all the hard questions first. So we're getting to what the hard questions are, and then we'll process them. Then if we have time, we can talk about, on the other requests, we can get into information on the rankings from town admin. The reason I'm suggesting that, Richard, is we kind of have a feeling that the Board of Selectmen and I think by lack of a nay, the Finance Committee at their last meeting when they got an update, are generally in support of the town manager's recommendation, which to me represents a total dollar number. So that's the long way of saying it seems like all this could be funded. Everyone's on board with that generally, and we're looking at things that we don't feel should be recommended.
So the only items that I can see that are not funded are the,
Sparks have sidewalk?
the
And the school
Yeah,
one,
it's,
right?
The
it's
school.
Sparks Ave in the school.
Yeah, Sparks have sidewalk in the school.
So there's two items. But okay, so and this is just an opportunity. So we're part of my concern is like I've had some follow-up discussion with the school. So they've got a slightly different perspective on how they might approach some of this. We aren't going to have an opportunity to discuss that as a group, perhaps. And there are things that maybe other things that would come up that if we sat and we had a meeting to review all of this. First of all, we had an opportunity to review it independently. And then we sat down and we reviewed it as a group. There might be some other things that come out of discussion. Some may argue that that's an academic exercise because the appetite for funding seems to be in place across the various boards and the town manager. So, I'm not going to push that. All right. Anyone? Thoughts on that? Thoughts on that. I'm just telling you how I'm feeling about it. If we want to get into greater discussion, what I would suggest is we format how we proceed. One would be we identify those things that we want to talk about, perhaps as a negative recommendation, and then we address what our charge is, our primary charge first, which is if we're going to make a recommendation clearly, and we need to know what's going to be a positive and what's a negative. So let's do that first, and then if we have time, which I would love to have, we could review more of the details of the other requests that although we are going to recommend them, we may have some questions for town admin or financing. We are still going to have to work through our funding sources recommendation, so that's going to be towards the tail end of this meeting with Brian. And Libby, I think, did you say you have to leave early? Or
I have a meeting at 10:30 downtown.
okay, so Libby's at 10:30.
Good. Maybe we can all leave it before that, What do you think? I didn't mean good that you were leaving.
I think he was.
I meant, no. I meant good, like maybe we can leave at 10:15.
Yeah. Chic.
That's what I meant, sorry. Sorry about that.
Tough start.
Can I say one thing, Pete? Steve. Okay. Peter McEachern is the FinCom rep on this group. I trust Peter McEachern to go back to FinCom when they start this whole thing over again to answer some of those smaller questions. And I'm not necessarily saying they're all small at the same level of small, but like some questions that are going to come up. Like, give you an example, the fencing. I think we've solved that they're postponing that. But I did talk to David Gray. This is an example of something we discussed last week. The $200,000 for the foundation. This is what his plan is, and he's a regular working guy. He's if I was doing his job, I probably would have forgot what he didn't say to us, and so this is what he wants to do, and it's such a good idea, but it didn't get said at the original explanation. He wants to put what I'm about to tell you. He wants to put a foundation under that building for the foreseeable future, but he wants to because he needs it, and he wants to set that up to be built on top of again by another building at some point.
Right.
Well, that changes everything. That's a good plan. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like we're slapping a foundation under a building that's worth $10. We're putting a foundation that's not ever going to wear out or have to be replaced under a building that can last X number of years until another plan is developed, if it does. So that's good. That sort of reminds me of some of the stuff we're doing at 37 Washington and figuring out what moving and matching things. So my point is that I think this committee, I think the process was, at least the way I understood this whole new plan, Steve, which town administration personnel have had to really dive into to figure this out. Thank you, Julia and Brian, because I couldn't have done it without help, okay? This was sort of I'm not going to say a draft, but like a process in the works. This wasn't like it for the 25 years and Phil Stanbaugh was doing this. You know what I mean? A previous
Matt,
Yeah,
you're
members.
the choir. I designed the
no,
system.
no, no,
I
no,
understand
but
that. This is a process.
but what I'm saying is, I think you're finding. I thought you'd be. I feel like we're okay where we are right now.
Look,
I mean, personally, there's
I'm-
always going to be questions about
There is.
something, no
I'm the
matter
type-
what we're doing.
And I'm the type of person who drives to make things perfect, and I understand you can't have perfect. So I
No,
understand
never
that.
gonna happen.
I understand that.
No,
And I don't think anyone's questioned.
and we're not writing the warrant. We're not putting the recommendation on the warrant. We're putting the recommendation to Finance Committee,
right. So
theoretically.
So okay. So a couple of things
So
there.
if there's some things that aren't all in favor 100% perfect, but we're still in favor of it, which is, there's some things in here like the beach, Children's Beach, Surfside Jetties one is definitely a flag a little bit, knowing what town's real plan is versus what we're doing right now. Those questions are going to come up at FinCom too. The same people are going to have to explain all that again.
Right, and
So-
part of our process, Matt, is to be that we have done a thorough, comprehensive job, which we're doing, as I said, we've done the best possible job I think we can under the circumstances. But then to pass on that recommendation so that other boards can rely on that because they know that we've vetted it with certain goals, ideally certain goals and objectives
Yep.
of the town and outcomes in mind that are long-term plans. We're winging it. We're doing the best we can on that. I don't think anyone questions Peter's integrity or his ability to communicate
Well, I
to.
wasn't saying that.
to-
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
the,
I don't
The way
ever-
the committee was formed, that's what's supposed to happen. That's all I'm trying to say.
I'm sure he can report back thoroughly.
Okay.
All right. So, thank you, Nat.
Okay.
I do appreciate that.
We're just
No, I appreciate it.
resetting a little bit, that's
Yep.
all. So you want to go through right from Harbor Master Building down?
Yeah, we're going to go from
Okay.
the top to the bottom. I don't know if you guys are looking at our group. I just, as a facilitator at the moment, I don't know if you guys are looking at our group ranking. You all are looking at, what I would suggest is look at your individuals. I am going to suggest that, depending on how many are get called, that anything that's, under arbitrarily 30% would be something that we discuss. And if it's a town admin, and this I think goes to Richard's point, is if there's something that's very low on the town admin's rankings, that we would discuss it also, because we haven't had, okay, so this is part of what I was concerned about, is we haven't had the discussion to go through all the requests, get the input of town admin on why perhaps rankings from their rankings are so low relative to some of ours, which could change our feeling on a particular request that we recommend or not. And that's kind of some of the things I have some concerns about. It's not the end of the world. We'll get there. All right. Where we were going to be 15 minutes ago, let's reset the clock. Harbor Master Building reconstruction. Would anyone have any open issues, or they think they won't recommend it? Okay. Chrissy, we're just going top to bottom.
Sure.
The CBAs, server virtualization, water main replacements, water tank replacements.
I have a technical
Water-
question on both.
Okay, so water tank maintenance, I'm sorry. So those two. Both tanks or both water main replacement and water tank maintenance?
Sorry, both tank maintenance.
Okay, thank you. Pine Valley Pump Station, the Airport Road Pump Station. This is the sewer department, pickup truck replacement, the CMOM program, town water to plant and staff housing.
I have a question on that.
Okay.
Yeah, is that one where with town admin at 9%, I mean, is that one that we just?
Yeah, if
But the reason they had it at 9 was because it was already going to happen, and it was some other,
Okay.
with another process, Libby, correct?
Yep.
So we
Okay.
can,
I remember that, like, very clear.
we'll get to that.
So we'll
Okay.
get into any detail anyone has on that.
It isn't that they don't want to do it.
Building foundation and utilities, again, this is sewer, just for context. Perimeter fencing. Okay, well, I'm going to call that, because I think as a group, we said we weren't going to recommend it, and
Right. No, oh.
so this is whether, this isn't more discussion, this is primarily, okay, let me back up, because I think we discussed this the last time, but I want to be really clear for everyone. The concept here is going to be a lot like town meeting. So we're going to
Okay.
go through, but this isn't an informational, primarily informational. This is primarily, you're voting to include it as a positive with
so-
respect to funding
Okay.
in our recommendation. So if you think that if there's some question in your mind whether this should be funded, I don't care how small it is, we're here to discuss this, let's have the discussion.
Well, then I'll call the foundation just to make sure that I think that should be positive. You're saying
You only need to call it if you don't want it.
if you don't want it,
if
even
you-
if the rankings are at the bottom of the barrel.
If you're, this is all about you individually, if you think you're going to not recommend
Okay.
something for funding,
All right.
then you call it.
All right, so then go ahead with your perimeter thing.
That's the primary thing. Sorry, Chrissy.
Yeah.
Or if you have a question
Yeah.
before you vote, then that's the informational side. But primarily, what you're saying, you're calling it if you're going to vote against a
Okay.
recommendation.
All right.
Chrissy, I'm sorry.
To Nat's question, if it falls on the lower end of the rankings, then I think you'd have a place to make a comment on it, though.
Yeah, you can, this is, if you,
Okay.
okay, so Nat, I was just trying to articulate for Nat that primarily what we're doing is, if he said that he was going to call the building foundation, so he could make sure that it got approved.
Yep.
Well, if he doesn't call it and no one else does, then it's approved by consensus.
Got it.
If you have a question, certainly, yes, ask, and we'll bring it up. Peter?
Without trying to digress, so our ultimate recommendation is going to be based on a vote or on a top to bottom based on the rankings and what we call out? I mean, I'm just trying to think of ultimately what our final action is to make a recommendation.
The way I'm looking at it on our timeline, we are going to go through this sheet. We're going to develop a list of things that we want to talk about
And then,
as a potential no. Anything that wasn't a potential no is a yes.
Yes, okay.
Subject to a vote.
and then those potential no's, do we,
We're going to discuss.
and then after discussion, do we take a vote
Yes.
as a committee?
Yes.
And then that, regardless of the rankings, is the binding recommendation of our committee for that request?
Yes, and the rankings would come in as a tool to advise us during
Right.
the evaluation.
But ultimately, regardless of the rankings, it's going to be based on our vote.
Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah,
Could be both,
Percy?
though. Could be both as
Yeah,
well, right?
yeah, it's not
Yep.
mutually exclusive, it's,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so we're at perimeter fencing, right?
Yeah, we're at perimeter fencing, and, okay, with having said that, is there anything that we've already called that wants to? No. We're not gonna do the list twice like at town meeting. Sparks have rehab under sewer. Sewer mains replacement, this is the, project areas 1 and 2, so that's 2 items. Surfside Road area sewer system improvements. Surfside wastewater treatment facility phase 2. The National Grid L8 feeder project. I just still don't get it on. The Jetties Beach, Bathing Beach Road sewers.
Okay, I just want to ask a question on that.
Yep, so.
But I don't know if anyone can answer it.
Well, wait,
That's
let's,
here,
let's do it
but
when we.
that's okay.
Okay, so let's do it when we go through.
Flag it.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
flag that for a minute.
So that one's.
you don't mind.
That's an open item. All right, so we're down to DPW facilities, annual facility roof repairs, annual facility ADA.
Is that in or out?
Pardon me?
Is that in or out?
Which one?
The ADA?
I think that's
Do
out
we flag it?
because it's happening
pending town
as
admins?
needed.
Well, I have.
Should be flagged
So
if
then we
we're
flag
going to
it
do
as
a
a negative. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Get
Okay.
town admins input,
Okay,
which
so
we
we'll.
got, but we can reiterate
Yeah.
and then.
Yeah, annual facility updates, HVAC, utilities, annual facility site paving updates, annual public bathroom updates, annual facility lighting updates.
I think we should call that
So, yeah,
on the
that
same basis
same
as
as-
the ADA.
Agreed.
Okay.
Okay.
DPW garage facility,
Definitely call that.
Yep.
Jetties Beach facility,
Call that in link to
Surfside and
the,
children.
in link to the Jetties Beach, Bathing Beach sewer one.
Okay.
That's why I'm bringing that one up.
so Surfside and Children's too, or no?
Yeah, I'll call those.
Okay, that's fine.
Separate.
I'm just going through the list right now, and then we'll have as much discussion as we possibly can if we have to meet over Christmas. The loader,
And back to your point, Mr. Chairman, I would question this to give it negative due to the town administration's explanation.
okay, so we'll have it.
So even though it's got low rankings,
All right, so
we're considering each one as positive unless we call it.
correct.
Correct? Okay.
So
Just
are you
checking.
saying you want to discuss it?
Discuss
or
it as negative, yes.
Okay, so you want to discuss it
Because
to get feedback from
one of
town
us has
admin?
to call it because of what they said last week,
Okay,
I feel.
okay, and the tracked aerial lift?
Same reason.
But we have an explanation a little differently now on this as well, Richard.
Right.
Even though.
Rubber,
Okay.
yeah. Rubber tired vibratory roller, skid steer, 1 ton stake body truck, 1 ton dump truck with plow, operations facility manager vehicle.
Call that. That was kind of low, so.
Steven?
Yes.
Skid steer?
You want to do skid
Yeah.
steer? Okay. Maintenance programs. So we've got the annual townwide pavement improvements and the multi-use path improvements.
All good.
Okay, we're good with those. Which, by the way, we did get some updated on the list. The Sparks Ave sidewalk is, well, I want to,
Just get clarification on that.
yeah, so we'll pull that. Surfside Lovers Okra,
I don't have Mike, though.
Four Corners. I'm going to pull that. That's priority one in any of that transportation stuff as far as I'm concerned, even Old South. I don't care about anything else that's going on with that. Bartlett and Surfside Roundabout. Old South quarter improvements. 6 Fairgrounds area road improvements. Pleasant Street sidewalk. Massasoit Bridge. Millie's Bridge. The VACCON truck, we're moving over to stormwater, guys.
Yeah.
The list is getting shorter. VACCON truck. The CCTV Phase 2. Phase 1 design and construction of the stormwater systems. Various. Traffic management. That was moved. I thought that got pushed out.
No, there was one in this year, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so that's good. Good, that's good. Parks Master Plan, under Parks, under Solid Waste, we've got Materials Recovery Facility, 2 items. One is replace the cardboard baler, and the other is a repairs to sorting station. We have the landfill mining. It's a 3%, but that's a mandate, so I don't know if we want to bother getting into discussion on it, so I'm not going to call it as a low-ranking number.
You're talking about the central office as a mandate?
Landfill mining.
Oh,
Mining.
okay. Wow.
School.
Guys, never mind.
That's
Sorry.
okay. It's okay. Safety and security, the vestibule, playgrounds and field
I'm getting
improvements.
mixed
I call that to discuss a little further. Central office edition.
Call.
Yeah, sorry about my skip.
Fleeting feeling that
Surprise,
someone
surprise.
was going to.
All right, sorry about that.
Let's see, so, our island home, supplemental funding. Let's see, so we're out at the airport, let me just, okay. Lights improvement, the AIP project, door replacement, taxiway E-mill and overlay, the GSE garage construction infrastructure.
Did that get moved out?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yep.
call that.
Okay.
That shouldn't be in there. Temporary hold room expansion with that structured awning that they have.
That's a question. Is that the new price or the old price?
That's the old price.
Old price.
Yeah, we got a new price?
Yeah, not
We're looking, but I don't know that we've received.
definitely higher.
Yeah, so
Doesn't
let's,
change on it.
so let's pull that so we can footnote. Because again, I'm gonna be working off of what we vote on. Paint and beads and rubber and markings removal, runway stuff. And the security and custodial vehicle. All right, Tom, you got your security and custodial vehicle.
So do you want to move approval on all the items not called, or what's the procedure?
Boy, that's more town meeting.
I'm going to second what you just said.
I think that we
No one else
will-
can bring anything up
Get him
now.
out of here.
Yeah, I guess there's no reason not to.
Do we clarify which
so
were
moved.
called then?
We're gonna have to do
Well,
a Sarah
I
now.
want to make, we're going to have to do the Sarah if we're going to do it that way. I have no issue with it. Let's move forward with stuff. It'll feel good to get some, we've done a lot of work. Let's see some light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to just go through this list again with you guys very, very quickly to make sure because this will form the basis for the motion. I'll write an Exhibit A for Terry. So these are only the items, if you don't hear something that you want to discuss. Well, actually, the problem with this, Richard, is if there's items that have been called for comment, I guess we'll just vote them individually. That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to call any items that we are either going to vote potentially no on as an individual member, respectively, or that you have questions or comments on. In the instance you have questions or comments, we'll get those addressed at a later portion of the meeting, and we'll vote those in separately, individually.
So do you want to retract your motion?
No, I'm going to do the list
Okay.
of what's excluded, and then we'll have a positive motion to accept into our recommendation and a positive the ones that aren't called. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I amend my motion.
So, water tank maintenance, want to comment, Water Co. and Wisconsin Water Company, these are not included in our positive recommendation. The town water to plant and staff housing, perimeter fencing, National Grid L8 feeder, Jetties Beach, bathing beach road sewers, annual facility ADA accessibility, annual facility lighting updates, DPW garage facility, Jetties Beach facility, sewer drainage, electrical, design and construction, which will be the next two also, Surfside Beach facility, Children's Beach facility. Under fleet management equipment purchases, the loader, the tracked aerial lift, the skid steer, and the ops facility manager vehicle. Under DPW transportation improvement projects, Sparks Ave sidewalk, Four Corners mini roundabout. Under school, the playground and field improvements, and the central office addition. Under airport, RL and home nothing. Under airport, the garage facility and the temporary hold expansion awning, structural awning. Okay, so Terry, just to be clear, of the list dated, the Capcom summary of FY19 requests, what we're voting to include it, to fund in a recommendation are all the ones that weren't listed, which I'll label as Exhibit A. Just, I know how you need to have your stuff in order and anything that goes on the website and attachments and stuff from HDC. Okay, great. So that's where we are. We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second.
Repeat.
I don't think we need a roll call vote, but so it appears that there being no nays, we have consent by we have a unanimous consent. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
All right, start from the top with water tank maintenance.
And Peter, you brought them, so do you want to talk them? It seems that would be fine to talk about them together. It's a general thing. Is that correct? Okay, so it's yours.
So the concept of maintenance, even though the number is where it is, what I feel there's potentially, we should look at why they're like the way they are and go after, or try to go after the installer. But in light of that, Brian,
Yes.
does it make any difference to us collectively whether it's funded, sound like a hypocrite, if it's funded by borrowing or retained earnings?
What?
That was my technical question.
I know.
Like I said, I sound like a hypocrite, but
Does it make any difference?
where's any potential impact in the actual department?
Well, it would make the difference in terms of the fact that Wisconsin is primarily 86% debt. They're pretty much, everything is debt.
Yeah.
They have an agreement for Wanacoma to operate, so there's very little other expenditures there. Adding the $658,000 for Wanacoma on top of the 3.5 and then the $5 million building, which hasn't even come on yet, is a discussion that the general manager and I have already had. And I believe he was looking at using retained earnings for those instead of increasing the debt load by that 658, because to me it's a perfect candidate for their retained earnings when they have about $2.5 to $2.6 million. So that's kind of a long answer. The short answer for purposes of this, if you're in support of the project and they make a change to the recommendation later to go to retained earnings, is that, that would be in the motion at FinCom, I guess, I would say.
Okay.
But that is a conversation that the general manager and I have had about that. And I've made the recommendation that they consider retained earnings to mitigate the increase of debt, given the fact that they have the $5 million building is being used in the calculation yet for the rate, and you're asking for another $3.5 million for water main replacement. So that has been discussed, and I suspect it will be the recommendation that we write for FinCom will more than likely ultimately be out of retained earnings.
My position, Eric, thank you for that explanation, but I would make this comment that I think a year to wait one more year is not going to get us in a worse off condition that we are now, and I'd like to, as a person on this committee, well, the FinCom, maybe sit in on a few meetings I want to comment to make inquiries about how we got here instead of spending another $1 million in fixing. So I can't recommend the money's being spent. I understand what they're going to be used for, but I can't make a recommendation yet. That's just me.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Comments or questions on it? Christie?
They could go to their retained earnings and do it on their own if they chose, though, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, they need a Brian, do you want to speak to that?
No, they would need authorization. Town meeting, the only way you can use retained earnings or free cash is through an annual or special town meeting appropriation. They can't just spend that retained earnings without authorization.
Like they did the villa.
No, they could not.
Yeah. But they don't need recommendation from us, like the building. They can just
They could
get
just stand
the
up at
town meeting to
and-
say yes, and then it can happen.
Correct.
Pretty much, right? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is
Yes,
one
sure.
of the few projects or line items that we've had the most discussion on and confusion or just wanting more information. Just looking at everything we talked about, like that was one of the items we talked the most about. So I understand why you'd want to maybe something or anything pushing off a year until we get more information.
Did we, and just on that, more information, did we, in this whirlwind tour, review the outstanding, did I report back on the outstanding I had mentioned that they had provided us information,
It was in our packet.
Yeah.
and I was going to follow up. I don't know if, did you get it? You got their explanation, or?
No.
Okay, so what,
I mean, all the information was in the packet, but it still doesn't, in my
Answer all the
mind,
questions.
address.
did you receive the
why
response
is
that
it
they
here.
provided?
Yeah, because
Drawing a
after we,
blank.
after we talked, they did come, you emailed them, right? And we got information.
Yeah, that's what I'm
back.
referring to.
Right.
I received information back from Brian, and I don't know,
I don't.
with everything that's been happening, I'm not quite sure if that was, if you all have, if we've discussed it. I mentioned that we received it, and I was going to discuss it, and then we didn't. I wasn't, no one who was here Monday, our meeting was canceled, so I didn't, it was, on my agenda, my folder for that. But I don't know, did we discuss it prior to that? Okay. So do you want that information? Do you believe that, I don't know that it would persuade you otherwise? I think fundamentally what you're looking at is that potentially there's a responsibility on a party with respect to the early degradation of the coating. And that's what you want to drill down into.
Yeah, I think the responsibility lies with Wanacomit itself to find out why on something that they bid, approved, and put forward has failed in this short a time. And I think they've got to check on their own policy and practices and who manages their projects, because I think it's unacceptable for something of that nature that has that degree of, we have to be reliable in our water
In our
tanks.
climate.
What else is going to fail?
Yeah.
And who's watching over
Arizona.
that whole department? I mean, it's not rocket science. Putting
Yeah.
wells and pipes and manifolds and headers is not rocket science.
Well, I had the displeasure of driving 350 miles this Friday, and Sunday on the way back, and looking at quite a few water tanks and gas tanks and propane tanks along the highways, and wondering what they're doing that we may not be doing. Obviously, those are like a postcard, though. You see them once and they look good, and you think that it's like a rose in Sconset on the postcards that get sent from Nantucket. Everyone thinks there's always roses in Sconset because they saw it on a postcard. It's
Oh, the house on Pulpus Road.
yeah, it's a freeze in time. But I was wondering to what extent we've reached out as a community, as the water company, to find out what other, we're using a particular. My understanding was the consultant that was, or the engineering firm, or the architect. Forgive me, it's one of the three who was involved in the design, was involved in the RFP. And I'm just wondering if, along the lines of what you're saying, Peter, it would make sense for the water company to be reaching out to other resources to see how they're doing it, and why, if it's lasting longer, it is, so that we might be able to incorporate it. So having said that, I'm simpatico in your what it is you're trying to accomplish. My only concern is that we have this we have this cost that needs to be addressed, and the cost is only going to escalate from year to year. So I'm not going to try and persuade anyone either way. I just want to make that statement. We can do this one of two ways. I think the best way to do it is to just kind of do a vote as we go, so we know what's left on our list towards the end of the meeting, and if we need to be scheduling another meeting. Is that good with you guys? You want to proceed with?
Yeah.
You do each one as we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Christie, please.
I mean, I have no idea what the original agreement was. I don't know as if the agreement said you have a 5-year epoxy on there,
Yeah.
or if you have. I don't know that. I can't assume that. I mean, I understand what the elements we have out here are, and they're probably more so than your average inland area.
Yeah.
It is an asset of ours that we certainly need to protect, but I'm a little just torn by that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I get you. Thank you. That's a point well taken. Just so you're aware, I mean, I did follow up. We did, the inquiry was along the lines of who's responsible for what kind of warranty exists, if one still exists, what kind of warranty extensions can be built in, what are the costs associated with those, and we even got into whether you could do this in-house or not, and there were various reasons why it wasn't feasible, which were, to my mind, very legitimate. So there's one or two things we could do here. We can do a vote, or we could hold to vote on our January 4th meeting, and if there's additional information that people feel is required, we can get it. I don't know that that's going to make a difference. Peter, yours seems to be more of a structural approach
I
to
think
what the
to
issue is.
Richard's comment at the beginning of the meeting, I think if we're talking about it now, discussing it now, I think you do it now. I would say vote now if you're ready. If you're
Okay.
not, then that's fine.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's what I want to get feedback from you guys. Christie?
I mean, I agree with that, but we could alter our vote if we got new information.
There's absolutely nothing preventing it.
Yeah, by the next.
Yeah. And we can discuss, if you guys want specific different information, what it is, so that we might, if that's something someone wants to consider, we could do it. Okay.
If I may, I just want,
Please.
I'd like to have as much information from Mark as possible before I feel comfortable voting. I could vote on it now, but you know, I feel like I'm voting with partial information. You know,
Is the vote to move it out a year while we're trying to pick up the information we need?
to approve or not to approve
Yeah,
I think that's assumed,
at this
Yes.
that's assumed.
that it would be
Okay.
allowed to next
All right.
year.
I'll make a motion to not recommend this, so we can move on, shoot it down, or
Yeah,
Second.
sure, thank you.
I'll second Jason's motion.
So we have a motion on motion for discussion. Any discussion? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One opposed.
One opposed. So Christie's opposed?
Just the one opposed.
So that's both the water tank maintenances?
Is that for both Wanacom and Hanscom?
That is correct.
Yes. Okay, so now we're down to the town water to plant and staff housing under sewer.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
David seemed to rank this pretty highly. I think it was number 4 in his listing.
Yes, I believe that's correct. I think that this was called because it had a low
Town.
Right, it has a
ranking.
low town ranking.
So, Libby, if we're discussing the sewer town water to plant and staff housing, is there,
It's exactly as Nat described it. We think there's going to be another way that came up after David put this in, where water can extend it for a cheaper amount that he might have in his budget.
okay,
Because
So that's
water's
pretty-
like 2 feet away from the gate, and it's down there. You know, fire protection. I mean,
Not 2
Yeah.
feet.
it's not like they're bringing it, well, you know what I mean.
It's not all the way down.
It's down there, though.
Pretty close.
How far? I think it's a
3.5.
trip drive. I'm pretty sure it's a trip drive.
so just to state that simply, you believe there's
Maybe a
an
little
alternative method in funding,
Yep,
and that's why you're not
correct.
supporting it? Okay. And I don't, yes?
And
Peter.
so, are we under the assumption that David is aware and is confident in that option as well?
Yeah,
Based
yeah,
on.
he is. This was a sort of a placeholder, actually.
Okay. And so, just this number 4 ranking of his, I mean, if he was in here looking at this right now, would he say that's actually way down the list?
I would say yes.
So is it appropriate then to suggest that perhaps this is actually just, this request is withdrawn as opposed to being voted no?
I think we just need an explanation for FinCom, that's it.
Well, if,
That would be my opinion.
if there's one less thing for FinCom to have to discuss because it's a no, we're going to have to do a presentation to them, and as opposed
Yeah,
to
I don't-
getting into why it's not recommended, and,
Well, you're going to be getting into that with some other things anyway. It's pretty,
Yeah.
I think it's just a pretty easy explanation, just not
okay, so
recommended
you want to keep
because.
it in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so is there anyone who would like to make a motion to either way on that, please?
I'll make a motion to not recommend the town water to plant staff housing.
Second?
Okay, so got all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any discussion? Okay, those in favor? All right, so unanimous consent? Okay, so we're going to do the perimeter fencing? Any,
Making a motion to, I think we kind of know that this is not going to happen, at least this year.
Yeah, let's,
It's kind of being reevaluated.
Right.
is that what it is? Okay, and
Yeah.
Libby, that's, you've got a 4, is that what you're?
Yeah, I think we just felt it could be put out, and he's got so many projects going on right now that it's a good idea, but we could hold off.
Okay, and just to be clear, our no's are for out years. We're not, correct, everyone? We're functioning under the same perception, assumption that a no is not, this project is
Never.
not worthy of funding. It's, this project is not being recommended for funding for fiscal year 19.
Right, and they can come back next year with the same
Yeah.
exact recommendation,
Okay,
right?
yeah, okay. So I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so unanimous consent. Okay, the National Grid L8 feeder project, sewer replacements. I called that,
You did?
I still don't have any additional, do we have some direction with respect to whether there is coordination ongoing and that's going to come together for FY19? Or
We haven't heard from National Grid.
Okay, that's what I'm.
We've
trying to
asked them
figure
several times. They apparently, we were supposed to have a meeting in October. That didn't happen because of storms that occurred in September. We were supposed to have a meeting with them in November. They told us they're still getting together the information we requested from them, which is engineered drawings of what exactly they want to do so we can figure out what exactly we need to do.
Right.
And they haven't provided it. So we'd like to keep the number in there because if
Yeah.
history is any indication, they're going to come back soon.
On their own schedule, but soon.
But, right, but we want to be ready.
So it's somewhat of a placeholder, kind of.
Yeah.
It's an authorization anticipating this is
And we,
ongoing.
right, and we won't do it if we don't need to, but we want to have the flexibility to be able to react if,
Yeah, if the funding, if the authorization isn't in place, it can't happen.
And
Right.
from-
Okay, thank you, that's helpful
And from-
information.
Tail wagging the dog.
I'm
Yeah, but
comfortable
that's-
with keeping the funding in there because
The way it
as soon as
works.
we get everything set for the warrant,
fix
we're going to get a letter the next week.
Yeah,
We should
yeah.
have the money
Yeah, you have
ready
to.
to go.
But I'm assuming that the town knows what's under the ground in bad shape versus sort of
I would
medium
never
shape.
assume
That's
that.
a big assumption.
All right.
But that's part of the issue.
I mean, in that area of concern, that's
We,
what I
I
mean.
think we're knowing now with the camera truck
Yeah.
work that's going on,
Yeah.
that's how we're knowing, because it's happening now.
Okay, all right. So just, I would make a motion to leave this in as town administration requested.
Second. Okay. So, no discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
So that's a positive recommendation. Thank you, Libby, that was helpful.
All right, my question on this, Mr. Chairman, just
Jetties,
to jump
okay.
so we can go
Just
faster.
for people know what's going on, we're jetties,
Yeah,
beach and
jetties,
bathing,
okay,
road sewers.
sorry,
Okay.
okay. All I'm asking is, and I didn't ask David this on the phone, I forgot, okay? How is this tied in, if at all, to the sewer portion of the DPW request of Jetties Beach facility? I don't know if Libby can answer that. I'm not saying that I don't support it, even if no one has the answer. Just anyone know the answer. I forgot to ask David.
I'm sure David does.
I know he knows, but I forgot to ask him on the phone. Totally forgot. I mean,
Isn't it,
is it the same thing or a different project for the same place?
I think one is stormwater, one is the sewer.
Well, if you look at it, though, drainage is stormwater.
Yeah, I
So-
think the sewer item is going to be encompassing possibly some additional work that involves drainage.
So is it
But
sort
it's
of,
all the same project.
it's all the same?
It all has to
Sure,
do with the
overlap.
jetties, concession, sewer and drainage situation.
Okay.
The
So-
parking lot, as you
So
know,
we
is
should,
a major problem.
and the other one might just be design more than construction, because it's only 100,000, although they got $1 million next year.
That's the construction.
All right, so why don't we just,
I think it was,
I'll withdraw my, and leave it up to them and just vote in favor of it. I would recommend that.
Now, I have notes on
Personally.
that one from when we discussed it. I
Yeah.
don't recall what it was, but I felt comfortable with the two.
David's explanation was good,
Yeah,
but the other one was,
yeah.
there's so many other things involved, and I couldn't figure it out.
I recall that David's had a sewer and a stormwater component, both two.
Yes,
I
he
remember
did.
the map, there was
Yeah.
a blue line and a red
There was
line.
two
One
different
going
lines.
to Holbert Ave, which I
Yeah.
believe was sewer,
Yeah.
and then stormwater going to North Beach Street. And as I recall, when DPW presented, it was I think just not piggybacking on that, but saying that we're also going to address this if we encompass,
Right.
if our project is all encompassing, we will collaborate with David on this part of the project.
Yeah, that was my recollection, and the net effect of approving both is that we're not authorizing the work to be done twice, we're authorizing the funds to do the work once, and then the DPW end of it is primarily initially design, so it will take into consideration anything that's already been done, so we won't, as a town, be encumbered and paying for the same work twice. So even though they have a similar scope in their description, it's not the same work twice.
Right.
Okay. So any other discussion on that? A motion?
Motion to approve, or support.
Supported recommendation?
Second.
Second.
Just
Any
point-
discussion?
Point of
Yep.
clarification. Does it include the DPW request as well? Or we're not there yet?
Not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can pick it up there. Any other discussion on the motion?
Motion to approve?
The support. I mean, I said it. I mean,
We have a motion.
Yeah, we have the
a
motion.
and a second.
I'm sorry.
That's right. Second.
All those in favor?
All those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
So that's unanimous consent. Okay. The ADA accessibility,
Clarification.
yeah. Libby, could you comment on your 6%?
It's pretty much, again, as Nat said earlier, these things are happening as we go, primarily with the downtown sidewalk improvement project. So at some point, we probably do need to update our actual overall plan, but things are happening as we go,
Yeah,
basically.
and I think that, just, I'm not trying to butt in, sorry.
Just tell us what you think.
What we've seen on Easy Street, finally, this is great, and the email from Rob McNeil, some of us got thrilled about this. Like, it's going to be piecemealed.
Yep.
And I think that's what Libby's saying. There's no way to fix downtown
Yeah. As
in a plan. It's going to happen at pieces. It's just, you can't help it any other way, no matter how you think. It just isn't going to happen. And I think, and this is a good reach out by him, I think, to have a little listening meeting about the next pieces of the sidewalk, plan, or whatever we're doing. And they're fixing the handicap stuff as they go, Libby. I mean, it's right there. All the flushing.
Okay.
It's going to happen by itself.
Okay. So,
That's
thank
good.
you. Thank you, Nat. Can I get a motion?
Well,
Oh, Peter?
so this is all related primarily to sidewalk and outdoor ADA
Yes.
accessibility?
Yes.
Okay, not interior town buildings or
No,
anything like
no,
that?
no. This is all to do with the sidewalk plan from 3 years
I
ago,
was not aware. Gotcha.
or 2, 3-ish now.
Yeah. My understanding was that it is exterior.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
But I,
Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
perception. Okay. I entertain a motion.
I'll move it
I got a question really
Yeah,
quickly.
Chrissy, sorry.
to,
Libby?
Yep.
How does the funding in out years work? I mean, is it just, are we doing, is that to do improvements each year?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So you want a negative because the money is already in the appropriations for the sidewalks that we already have, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think we would want to reevaluate this next year and see where we are with our
need it,
sidewalk
need it.
improvement project, but for this year, I don't think we
Yeah.
need to.
Okay, so your motion
yeah,
is
motion
somewhat to be
to
negative.
not recommended.
Yeah.
Peter?
Then I would ask that the description, that you remove the ADA accessibility, because you wouldn't want anyone to think that we're voting down ADA accessibility.
Yeah.
That's not what we're doing.
That's,
should
you know
revise
what,
the
oh my
description.
God, you're right.
I wouldn't get
Oh,
behind
the
that.
perception question again. That's not what we're doing, it's
I
just
know, but we know what we're doing.
the money that,
says.
how much money is in that sidewalk now? 1.5, Brian? Okay,
Two
Okay.
minus the work that's being done.
2 minus the work, okay.
So we'll trust that in the
Change.
finance department, the title will be changed to just address that it's accessibility, and then we know as a voting group that this is,
Ongoing.
the ADA component is being addressed ongoing
Yeah.
through other programs. Okay. So entertain a motion.
I'll
Okay.
second the motion. Oh, no, you seconded it. For
I'm still
discussion.
waiting for a motion.
No, the motion was.
Oh, Peter, did you
Peter
make-
made the motion.
I did.
Okay, great.
What was the motion?
To not support the
Oh,
50,000
that's right. This is discussion on
for
the.
this year.
You're waiting for a second.
Okay, we've got the 2nd.
I'll second it.
Excellent.
Just whatever.
No discussion further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous consent. Annual facility lighting updates. Libby, back to you. I think you addressed this the other day.
Yeah, I think this was that, another as-you-go kind of a thing.
Okay. And
And that if we're going to be doing, like town building, for example, significant lighting updates, we'd probably wait until we're doing a bigger project.
and all the smaller type approach could come out of operating.
I think so.
Changing
Yep.
light bulbs doesn't have to be a townwide plan, although I understand it, and I don't disagree with if we could go through and do a whole on change to LED bulbs, there'd be energy savings, but there's other things involved in that, with
Yep.
not the least of which is if you've got fluorescent tubes and the changing out the transformers and the cost associated with that and all that. So I get your point. You're going to go do it as you go. So entertain a motion.
Make a motion to not recommend.
Do you have a
Second.
second? We have a second. Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous consent. All right, so the DPW garage facility,
So what's the number that we're asking for? Is it 2.5 with the 18 moved to other
Yeah.
years? And is the 2.5 included in the 18?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, the line items that add up to it.
Okay, so we're recommending,
Line items plus.
we're looking for $2.5 million in fiscal year 19
Correct.
and 15 and a half in,
Well, I think the work to be done with the 2.5 will give us a better idea of the number, and the idea is to go out to bid prior to town meeting next year, so we have an actual number, and as we move through the OPM and design process, we should get a better idea of the number.
And Rob McNeil is looking at not only some of the buildings at the airport and how they're constructed, but also reaching out to other DPW chairs in other communities to get a better handle on other types of buildings. Other is general and broad. So we had a meeting yesterday where our small little committee that we're helping Rob kind of focus. And as you pointed out, it's a $6 million building, but yet was line itemed at 18. Put the onion back together, you see where all the pieces go. We're trying to get that 6 million down to, I don't write these down, but between 2 and 4.
okay.
and then, so the 2.5, this is just informational, the 2.5 is, what does the 2.5 include?
Architects, engineers, design development, getting ready for just prior to construction type drawings.
And OPM services.
Get you to a bid.
Plus a factor just to make sure that we have enough there.
Christie?
Is that excessive? How much engineering is going into this building?
It's the OPM.
But it's not just the building. There's the relocation of the fuel tank, it's the salt shed, it's the washing down station.
Christie, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure
Drainage.
you're answering his.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Did you were saying the design, the 2.5
Yeah,
for
I just want to
design
make sure
or
it's
the
clear
construction
what that
costs?
is, what that's covering.
Yes,
And not just
agree.
this general sort of
us
under
the
one
bid.
general, because I'm thinking about the general public and how they're going to perceive something. I just want to make sure it looks like what it should be.
To offer a little bit of professional advice, there's much more engineering that goes into a DPW than a police station, fire station, admin building all together collectively. Because of the products that you're housing, the fuels, the fertilizers, the explosiveness of the gases that are expressed from those vehicles, not people. It takes much more talent and expertise, having built a couple of them. You need to spend a little bit more money. Now, granted, the 2.5 is a little fat.
Yeah.
That's a good accounting term. But, I also feel that Rob is going to want to, in a sense, not overspend the 2.5 and then put it into the bricks and mortar instead of, OPMs and
My only comment at this point on that is that I think that I'm not concerned, but I do believe we need to be articulating, insofar as a member of the capital committee, articulating what part of the whole this is. I don't know. I presume that would help to present information to the voter on whether to approve it. Look, I support the project, but it's just, to me, $2.5 million for design. What the average person is going to hear, this is $2.5 million to design a garage.
And we talked about the facade or the description garage. The garage is an injustice to a project that we're doing here. It's not a garage.
Yeah, I mean, it's a facility. It's part of their overall campus. It's the kind of the nucleus of their campus. And I get that, but I'm saying, because I don't know when we're going to be getting together again, other than giving Libby information, which we're actually going to be giving her much earlier than January 4th, where it goes after it leaves us. And I need some direction when I am writing up a recommendation, because I'm writing it up on behalf of all of us and not my work as the chair is for our group and not my personal thoughts. So I'm looking for some input when I bring this up. And Peter, perhaps we can touch base on it, just how we're going to put this in as our recommendation. So first and foremost, is this title going to remain the DPW garage facility?
I hope not.
Me too.
It's more like a site facility.
We spoke about that yesterday afternoon, literally changing it.
Well, I don't think we liked, Rob sort of talked about changing it to campus improvements, but I don't know if we like that word either.
I don't like improvements.
And what we're all talking about is town meeting right now.
Okay, so as opposed to getting into what we're going to name it, I mean, I think the gist is that we want it to be an accurate, so that it can easily convey accurately what it is that's being done for not only this amount of money, but what this amount of money the design fees are associated with. So with that being said, I would, before January 4th, we want to, I'm getting an echo here. Before January 4th, we want to pin that down. Is that fair and accurate?
Yeah, I think we need to take out the G word. We're not gonna
Yes.
say the G
Yeah,
word.
Gotcha.
Because it doesn't really
You
explain.
absolutely do.
Yeah, it doesn't explain
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
And it's misrepresentation. I also like what Peter said earlier. What he just explained to me why it's different than even a fire station.
Sure.
Which you think would be way more expensive.
Yeah.
That story needs to be told.
Yeah.
And I think we need to move this on, whether we're comfortable with 1.8 or 2.5 million. We need to continue this process, in my opinion.
I see the confusion about the number, though, because in our chart, we say 2.3, but in Rob's email, he says 2.5.
Well, but
Yeah.
see, the thing is that in the comments, it says design is 2.5. We still have $200,000 from the original $400,000 appropriation left. So
That's
we
good.
need an additional $2.3 million.
Okay, so it's 2.3 then, not 2.5.
That's why it's 2-3.
Richard?
My only question is, where did the 2.5 come from? Your subcommittee?
If you look at, let's see.
It's a line item on the estimate package that you gave us.
Oh, it's a line item? Okay.
An email from our office
Yesterday?
Okay.
with the DPW outstanding items and a cost estimate breakdown.
Yeah, and I'm
It's a
going to
combination.
get into that in just a moment,
Okay.
because
All right.
it gives me a different number, so that, I don't want to make this more confusing, but I want to get the accurate information and move this along, because we've got a bunch of other stuff to address on our agenda this morning.
Can I make one final comment about it?
Yeah.
This is not being designed for Rob. This is not Rob's building. This
Sure.
is the town.
Yeah. Well, and just for the record, there is a work.
Just want to be
group in
clear.
place. There is a work group in place, and there will be Libby, as I understand it, there will be a more formal work group
Yeah.
at some point. Okay, so just so
It might
everyone's
be
aware.
easier if it's Rob's.
I guess the only clarification.
Thank you, sir.
Good one.
I guess the only clarification I need is, at what point, we're doing design, not construction, so the owner's project manager's fees
Absolutely.
it seems to me that it shouldn't be in, although we can identify it based upon percentages, it's not something that would need to be authorized, or
Well,
please correct me.
The idea is that we would do a procurement for the OPM based on a description of the garage as so far put out there.
So you're.
And they would help they would help oversee the development of the bid documents.
Okay, so you're getting one step further in the process. It's not just design, it's owner's project manager in order that you can do as you just
That's my
articulated.
understanding, yeah.
Okay. And is that the understanding of that?
That's the way the procurement office would recommend this be done, so.
And is that how we're going to, somehow this is going to be encapsulated in the article? Or it can be discussed that way? Because I think
Yeah, it can
it
be
presents a
discussed that way,
completely
yeah.
different picture than
I think it can be
what we
discussed.
started with.
It can be discussed that way. Can be put that way in your report?
Yeah, and that's why I'm looking for information. I need to put
Yeah, I
something
mean, we can
down.
help provide some wording.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to need to be able to articulate how you're looking at that and how it relates to the procurement process.
I've got a
Yeah,
question.
Christie?
Peter might be able to answer this. Is there, in that 2.5, is there any physical work that's going to be done? It's all
No.
just prep? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But it may not get used,
Yeah.
all of it.
Right.
I mean, this is where,
And then you can roll it over.
I mean,
Yeah.
whether I support it or not, it doesn't matter. The money just is what, this is a placeholder only going to get used as needed, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for the past bunch of years, this committee's always talked about protecting assets, and I mean,
Amen.
I'm equally in support of this. I just am cognizant of how it's perceived.
And that's your ATM. This is going to get brought up. This will, I guarantee this gets called and flagged.
Yeah.
And Peter's going to have to stand up.
Well,
And it just is. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, this is more than
And it
Old
should be.
South Corridor and every
Yeah, maybe it
roundabout
should be.
Nat Lowell's dreams about every night.
sure, maybe it should
It's
be.
a lot of money. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying it's a lot. That's all.
It's good discussion for the town to have on this, and, you know, that part of our role is to make sure that we're developing and establishing credibility, so annual town meeting doesn't feel like it is an
This
ATM.
is half of a new boat. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay?
Boat or new boat?
Yes, sir, Jason?
I would
Both.
like to make a motion that,
Yes,
that
thank you.
Nat Lowell never talks about himself in third person again.
I'll second.
We have the unanimous consent. Okay,
It's more than an arm's length away.
so is there any more discussion on this?
So what's the number we're approving? 2.5?
2-3.
Yes,
2-3.
2-3. Yep.
2-3.
Yeah. It is confusing, but that's clear now. There's no question that they got that figured out.
So I make a motion that we move forward with the 2.3 on the design development for the unnamed facility.
And-
Second.
And may I friendly amend that to include change of title and some extrapolation of
To
the
be determined
information
later.
on.
Yeah, I trust that they're on that.
Amen.
All right, yeah,
Second.
I trust it too.
Thank you, Nat.
Okay, any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Nat, I know you're winding up for this, so.
I'm actually not winding up as much as I was in the previous meetings.
Good.
It's just, I think that, again, this committee is advisory. We're not telling the town what to do, whether it be the selectmen issue, whether it be a finance committee recommendation.
Well,
I still feel that what they're asking for this year on this is okay, regardless of whether we blow those places up or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm sort of looking at it from that perspective now, but are these plans in place for some of this expense, or is this just sort of estimates, Libby? Regardless of whether we
I don't know what you mean,
Okay,
plans in
what are we
place.
talking about?
The-
Okay, hold on. a
talking
second.
about jetties.
Hold on.
The
Nat.
100,000, 75, and
Please
75.
jump the gun.
Let's,
I
let's,
For the plan.
I just want to get this framed. Just for everyone, we're talking about Jetties Beach, Surfside Beach, and Children's Beach facilities as a
Right.
whole, which, with respect to design and construction, and the sewer, the drainage, the electrical, and water, some of them are a mixed match between the two. So just, thank you. I just wanted to clarify what we're talking about. And I think what Nat's talking about is what level of this design gets into layout. Is that? This is, what I was trying to make clear before in the last meeting is that this is not about, this is design and construction, this is the design element funding to determine what utility-related infrastructure utility type improvements are required, not to get into what the layout of the building will be or what it looks like.
Right, but also some facility improvements, like
Right.
maybe one of them needs a new roof, maybe one of them needs new doors, windows, whatever.
Right. And then just to add to that, Matt, so you can process it, and if you've got a comment. So as a result of what happens with the review and the design of these solutions, there may come discussion about, well, we need to make changes, and they're bigger changes than just, they also deal with the aesthetics and the facade and the layout. But that will be a whole nother process that would create and trigger, would be created and triggered by these funds, and a whole separate discussion.
Yeah. As I said, I'm sorry I jumped. Didn't think I was, but as Libby just kind of answered, I understand that some of this is not in relation to building new or rent or that type of level of work. It's some of it is existing work, correct, Libby?
Existing.
You just said that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Existing improvements to the current structures is part of some of this money.
Yeah, not
Maintenance.
existing improvements, things that need to be repaired or maintained on the building as they exist now, like
That's what
a
I
new
mean.
roof.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. This is sort of like an island home sort of thing
Yeah.
in relation to moving it to another location kind of thing. So I'm okay with it. I'm not okay with blowing the buildings up, per se, but that is a separate conversation.
Yeah,
It's
and I
going
don't
to happen.
think we're talking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If anyone's going to blow anything up, it's still got to come through us.
Yeah.
So we'll have a pre-blow-up meeting. Okay. So is there any, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
You got the information
Yep.
you were looking for? Okay, good. That's what it's about.
Motion to approve?
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, down to fleet management. We're still in the DPW, and we're looking at equipment purchases, the loader.
I would just, I brought this up just simply because of last week. The fact that it's not necessary, I think we should just vote not to recommend the loader. I mean, we were under the impression that they needed two, and then we find out they really don't. So that's good, right? I mean, that's what was said.
I think they need two.
I was going to
They
say.
did? I thought that town administration, when you
I'm
say,
saying DPW believes they need two, and Rob has a lot of reasons for that, and town administration was saying you're going to have to make do with one.
oh, that's slightly revised.
Yeah.
I thought town admin means sort of Rob as well, kind of.
Well,
It wasn't a consensus view.
Okay,
right. No.
okay.
So that's fair enough. Thank you for
All
clarifying.
right, cool. Well, that's,
Okay, so any thoughts on this? I personally, I think if the way it was described to us, and I have no reason to doubt it, is that it's going to increase their efficiency out there. And it's not to be contrarian against the town's ranking, but if we can make things happen more productively, and in some ways keep worker morale up, I'm not suggesting we buy everyone a shiny new vehicle, but it feels good when you can get stuff done and you cross stuff off your list. And if we can make that happen in a way that benefits our bottom line, then I support it. And I think that this is on that track. So I would support it. Although I said I wasn't going to say anything about the stuff that I was going to support, I guess I just did. I apologize. Was it unintentional? Truly unintentional. And any other discussion? Entertain a motion, please.
I would move not to approve it.
Okay.
right.
Second.
I would second.
I would agree.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay. And I'm abstaining, so I'm not voting no against it.
So it's 3-1.
No, it's unanimous.
Oh.
No.
It's a no unanimous.
It wasn't.
There was
Was it
one
one-
abstention.
one-
No,
There was
one
one.
nay.
Nay.
Nay
One.
means yes.
Jason, you voted against.
He's against recommending no.
So he was in favor of it, of the loader.
Correct.
Right.
What emoji says that?
Okay. It's kind of like a smiley upside down sideways look. Okay, so moving on, folks, tracked aerial lift. So we did get some, I don't know if everyone
I
had an
read that.
opportunity to look at that.
I have,
I make a
Eight.
motion to approve the tractor lift.
Second?
wow, that was quick.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
I
Okay. Unanimous?
got a, after.
You got a, yeah on that one?
Yep.
Well, I just want to say,
No
It's
bucket-
okay,
no
I'm
bucket
I'm
truck.
approving,
I just
yeah, but
want to
there's
say it's
another
the
truck
bucket
they
truck,
have.
but we didn't have the same discussion about the bucket truck, so
It's not.
I
It
know,
has
I know.
Much more flexibility.
It has much more flexibility.
Requires a
And
trailer.
that's the sell.
You're into bucket trucks.
Requires a
No,
trailer,
a bucket
two
truck is
guys.
archaic.
More
Is that the
Okay,
It looks very lonely sitting outside the garage there.
turning.
so we've got,
Rip-
sorry, I
rip
just,
dirt.
got, yes. Yes.
Where are we, skid
Okay,
steer?
great. Skid steer?
I make a motion that we approve the skid steer as noted. Once again, because of the flexibility and the versatility of the tool. It's
so I'll-
not just one vehicle.
So
No,
I'll-
they got all the attachments, he said that at the meeting.
So
Good,
I'll
good.
ask for a second, and then we'll have discussion.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Christie had his hand up,
So
and then.
I had just made a comment on this one. I know this is a versatile piece of equipment for them, and I'd like to approve it, but I also will base my final vote maybe on a later date. Just 100,000. I know new you can get these about 60 grand.
Yeah.
I don't know why this is so high.
Attachments.
and
Has
trailer.
to
I
be
thought he said he's
attached.
already got them.
No, I
No,
meant,
no.
he's.
He doesn't.
Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I meant, they're adding this one with attachments to the ones that they've already had. They're moving into, they moved away from the machine with the mower thing and the brush cutting sideways thing, and then now they're using these a little bit more. Similar to what Ken Panasek does, but not that attachment. But the Bobcat has become extremely versatile now with these
I
weird
agree.
attachments.
Yeah.
It's
For
a
some reason,
very
I thought he had-
different thing
he already
now.
had them. So, all right.
So
No,
this
it's
is- this is
it's
coming
okay.
with
I have other things. I don't like the 5 year. I think that's crazy. Just ignore this 5 year life cycle nonsense. It's really longer than that.
Okay.
I don't know where that
I
comes
still
from.
think it's high, but, I mean, hold on.
So this is a $60,000 skid steer and
With a
55,000
bunch of stuff.
and 55,000 in attachments.
And they come, I think you have to order them to receive all this stuff too. They don't just show up with all the hydraulics and the
Yeah,
quick
you gotta
disconnects.
accessorize the
You know what I mean?
connector and the. and the-
Outfit the Bobcat.
And they plow with it. They brush cut now. You just saw what they did the other day.
Okay.
It is interesting how it works. It is pretty good.
So-
I gotta say.
We've got the discussion. I'm going to ask for a vote, but just before, while we're on discussion of this topic, Christie, I would just ask if, shoot Brian an email, get it to DPW and give you a list of
Yeah.
accessories. Because, you know,
Sure.
it's
They have a bid.
$150,000 is a significant amount of
Yeah.
money for this piece of equipment.
I mean, you go online, you can buy.
It might be with a trailer.
You can buy four, you know.
Yeah.
It might
You get
have
it
a
for 20
trailer
grand,
with
in
it
good
too.
shape.
Yeah,
It might
and
have a
Am-
trailer.
And Amazon will deliver it to you next Tuesday,
With
too.
a skid steer.
Okay, so any further discussion on
It
that
does
one?
have trailer. See?
It does come with trailer.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay, so that's unanimous.
I agree with Christie's point, though. We can get him, he should be able to get that information.
Okay, yeah.
I will.
It's a good question, and I appreciate giving us an update at the next one. So operations facility manager vehicle, again, we're under fleet management for the DPW equipment purchases, and this is with a plow and onboard computers.
I think that we kind of talked about this last meeting as kind of a little bit of a
Wish.
a little sundae with maybe too many cherries, some nuts. I don't know. I think this was like sort of no, kind of, town administration and just general, as I recall. It's not a motion yet, but
Libby, did you have any comments at 10%?
I think we thought it could be put out at least another year.
Put out a year, okay.
Seemed,
And,
seemed a little much.
the only question I have on it is, I see huge efficiencies by having the computers on board, but it
That's
seems,
you.
it seems to me, I see.
no, you. I mean you like personally. I meant you. To me, I think it's unnecessary. I know it's only 60 grand, but like we talked about the truck at the airport for 60 grand for half an hour.
Yeah, but this
I
one-
see this as like, guys, guys got a log and books and ways to keep track of these things. I don't see it
But,
necessary.
well, would just say that it connects to a larger system so that people in the office can get in real-time information, and there is a lot of efficient value to having the onboard computer.
Yeah, I understood this to be, this is for the office to be in the truck with all capacities so that it's more efficient. So having said that, my understanding is that really for that to tie into something, it won't be until next year in any event.
Right.
So if we put it out a year, it's not as if we're stubbing our toe by doing it. Okay.
That's my understanding.
Peter?
Do we know specifically which personnel, who would be in it? Would it be multiple users, one user, do we know?
I think it would be a dedicated vehicle to one user.
Yes.
I'm not exactly sure who. I think we probably were talking about Mo.
Okay.
We are? Okay.
Oh,
Didn't know that.
I would want
I think we might have a
find out.
changed vote over here.
Not a changed vote, but just a changed thought.
And then I
Thinking.
would like to add one thought on that. For $60,000 for a truck with a plow, with onboard computers that tie into Central Station is, I mean, that's a deal in today's day and age. I don't know if you've been over to the local dealership and looked at vehicles, but the plow system, the hydraulics, and then the plow package, and then to have the computers on there. I just think relative to a pickup truck for security at the airport, not that I'm comparing the two directly, but I am, I think that this is actually even a couple thousand more. So I just want to make that general comment. Okay, so comments appear to be done. Do we have a motion?
Move it out a year.
Okay.
Not recommend.
Yeah.
Second.
Seconded, no further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're going to move that forward a year. Actually, I'm going to make a general commentary. When I say the vote was no, it's all to move them forward at least a year. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of who is, I hate to say this, this is sort of like recommendations for town, for the warrant. How does this get written? Brian, is this your job to do this? Or is this Steve's new job? Like, I'll go along with his 20 other jobs he's created this year. I mean, verbal recommendations, when we say no, sometimes it doesn't really mean no to the FinCom, is what I'm saying. Like, how does that get funneled through?
Okay.
So
Is that you?
I think there's two ways to look at this.
Saying,
Yeah, I
staff
get you.
is already working, you know?
So you rolled a couple things in there, so I'm going to try and address them.
Sorry.
Annual town meeting, the things that we vote to put a year out won't be addressed at the annual town meeting, so that eliminates that aspect of it. And then we'll do a final recommendation, which will be it will be largely the same as we did last year. That's just the element of time and not having all the software to feed our data into a template. It's going to end up how it's going to be. So we'll have a written report, which is our recommendation, that we'll all review. That will go on to FinCom and the Board of Selectmen to inform them that our group has performed in its best capacity our responsibilities. They will make a determination on how to proceed. Ultimately, that whole thing will get filtered through and form the text of within the article for appropriation. And I imagine that some of these things, if not many of these things, are literally going to be a line item in the warrant, as opposed to, we're not going to have not every one of these is going to be articulated with its individual narrative of text. It's going to be a line item, or it might even be a category of funding. Is that what you're thinking generally?
I mean, all of the capital for the general fund, I would surmise, except for the ones that are going to be debt exclusion because they'll be written separately, will be part of Article 10.
Yeah.
And whatever your recommendations to the FinCom, whatever the FinCom ultimately votes, be written, and we write the funding source.
Right.
We write the motion, and we write the funding source within that motion,
Mm-hmm.
So, and anything, so take, for instance, the DPW garage, that would be, I believe, I don't want to speak for the town manager, but I think it would probably be a separate article.
Okay, we got to talk to the selectmen about that, because sometimes these things are separate articles and sometimes they're not.
Right.
The very large capital projects, like the school, fire station, have been separate articles. But we've probably had design for a large project in Article 10 before as part of the motion. I don't know if the board would want to separate out the Old South Road improvements. That might be, it's a
Sure, its own
standalone.
article. And then just.
I would say yes.
And then any of the ones that aren't,
gonna get-
they'll just probably be like a spreadsheet format or something,
Yeah.
as they typically are.
Yeah, it's a motion in Article 10, lists all the departments and the items and how they're going to be funded.
Okay. Does that help?
No.
Our report
You-
isn't,
you-
what I
that
write or
isn't-
they
I
write
meant-
isn't going to be.
What I was
what goes
actually
to the
talking
article.
about, Libby looked at me, was when we say no, that isn't a no versus a no. Like, in other words, a no for putting it out years versus more information versus no, we don't agree with this at all. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, I still
To
don't
FinCom.
follow.
You don't follow.
To FinCom.
Or to who our recommend.
It's going to be that it's an out year. We recommend an
Yeah.
out year.
However-
We're
Right.
not saying no, and that's what I was just
Right.
saying to
That's
Terry.
all
is
I'm
that
saying.
we're not saying no. We don't believe in funding this. We're saying we don't recommend.
Okay, so
funding
that
it this
gets
year.
set in it. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
As far as the other thing goes, that Libby just brought up, I think, you don't want Article 10 to kill, you don't want one thing to
Yeah,
kill Article
right,
10.
exactly.
And that's all I get that, and that's something that we've discussed briefly here and there
Yep.
at different levels of whatever all of us are doing. You can't let the DPW garage blow up Article 10. You can't let Old South Corridor blow up Article 10 if someone calls it out for discussion and it ends up going to a vote. Oh my God, now what are we doing? I mean, that's insanity. So you do have to think about what the perception that Jason is bringing up. That's how people think. You've got to have it separate and have the debate about one thing when it's something like that. The bucket lift, aerial lift thing is not going to kill Article 10. It might.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep, I
But
gotcha.
that could.
That makes sense.
You know?
Yep. But, you
That's
know,
all.
There's information and expectations management. Okay, so that makes. Yes, please, Terry.
Some of the motions are to approve, some are to recommend, some are not to approve, some are not to recommend. Is there a difference, or are we really saying you are recommending or you are not recommending? That's the
We are.
question.
Yes,
We
we're.
shouldn't have said
The final is we are recommending or we are not recommending.
Okay, so one of the questions you want me to make sure all motions read recommend or not recommend.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Second question, where you say not recommend, do you want me to add the words this year?
I think that unequivocally, in all instances, we are saying if it's a not recommend, it's a not recommend this fiscal year.
So you don't think that needs to be in the motion specifically?
I think you can add it if you're just putting it in there. That's fine for clarification.
Okay.
That's going to be part of what will also come out in our report. But I just was trying to underscore that so that we're all make sure we're all on the same page, because I don't want to be putting in the report if it's something different. And clearly, if someone thinks this is not a request that the town should be involved in and should ever fund, then just say that. We'll have that discussion. Everyone good so far?
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. Sparks Ave, sidewalk, Surfside to Milestone.
There's nothing. Right?
No, but Mike's not here, and he got stuck in an airport issue yesterday, not Atlanta. And I haven't really asked him about this, but I did talk to Andrew a little bit about this. I believe that the reason that the the part from the school to the let's just say the gas station. I'm just saying, Nantucket Auto. That was a separate upgrade fix to widen that out a couple of years ago. There was other funding. There's been some funding from the projects in the area. I can't think of which one there's some money for. But then all of a sudden this Complete Streets thing popped up, and it got kind of pushed into it somehow to go all the way to the Milestone Rotary from the school.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but I don't know how and why that happened that way. I think that there is funding for the part that I mentioned at the beginning still or something. I don't know 100%, Libby.
This project has something of a bit of a history, and I think some of the money you're talking about was,
The DJ McKinnon approval.
yeah, escrows or whatever they are from Stop and Shop and others. This project started out as being something like $50,000
Yeah.
from the school to Nantucket Auto Body, but
Yeah.
it wasn't engineered, it wasn't even.
Well, it's because it's existing.
Well,
We're just fixing it.
yeah,
making it
but then there
wider.
became some questions about curbing and width, and is it multi-use, blah, blah, blah. And then it turned into this number.
We have zero now.
Oh, yeah, it
We're
was,
getting the state funding, though.
it was
something.
something closer to $1 million or 600,000 or something like that. So I think we said we need more information on this.
Yeah.
But it did get worked into Complete Streets somehow.
Yes.
And Mike's the
don't
one
have
who,
that answer.
I don't either.
I feel really
Okay,
bad.
so-
I don't have it.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's helpful then. So I guess the question for us, for me, with respect to the group's information is that, okay, so we have a request, and it appears as though it may actually have, aside from needing more information, that under Complete Streets, it has some type of a funding source, potentially?
It did have some type of, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
and then, so the question for us is, I think at this point, does it require some type of an authorization even if the funding comes from Complete Streets?
Mr. Chairman, I do believe when Mike Burns was here, I thought you had discussed and he had mentioned that this could be pushed out to FY '20.
Yes.
I think you're right, yeah.
Okay, so
That's true. Maybe that's why we.
FY '20,
And
and,
the funding, it wouldn't affect the funding was your question.
yes.
In fact, it's Q. Okay.
So we're,
I just don't remember this.
So it can be moved out to
I'm
20
looking
and get
sorry.
more information about the
20.
number and stuff.
thank you.
I should know, but I
Mr.
don't.
Chairman?
Oh, it
Yes.
says that at the end.
Just want to make
Julie's right.
sure we're putting all this money, millions and millions, into roads, and I'm just making sure that we're going to push this forward because we really need to, not because we're trying to save a little bit of money, because this is sidewalk, this is for pedestrians.
Yeah.
And-
No,
and
understood.
I just want to, why are we pushing it forward? I'm not convinced yet that we need to, because we have
Right.
$400,000 from Complete Streets for this project.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it's not going to get done till FY '20, then that makes sense. Because it's a process. I just want to make sure we're not pushing out this to save a buck.
I think with the project, if it was like all set to go, I think it would be phased, because the path to the Nantucket Auto Body is like totally different than the rest of it. The rest of it is sort of tweaking stuff, not building. You already have a sidewalk. It's probably a little bit of a layout where we can pick up another foot or something like that. I don't really know what else there is in
it's
that area.
It's a lot. I mean, we looked at this at the BPAC and Complete
did?
Streets. We, really analyzed it. We had Beta come in and look at it and walk
Okay.
away. I think I need a little more information.
Okay. So can we do that January put off for more information thing on this one?
Yeah.
I just don't want to lose it. If it's
No,
gonna
I don't
push
want to
off
lose it
another
either.
year.
I feel like it's partially my fault, planning commission person that doesn't know exactly what's going on with it.
I think
How
Mike-
it morphed to this from what it was before.
Mike could probably explain it in 10 seconds. He's just not here to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would entertain a motion on that.
So, point of clarification though?
Yeah.
So, do we
Peter?
motion to not make a recommendation right now?
I was gonna, when I said that, I looked at Jason with a cue if he wanted to make a motion to hold till January
To hold.
4th.
Okay, so we
Yes.
can.
Which seemed to be the inclination of the group.
Yeah, I'll make a recommendation to hold
Yeah.
to the next time we can look at this, get feedback from Mike Burns.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
And just discussion on the topic would be that I think what I would just ask is, I'll just put it in our list of things to follow up on, and I'll follow up through Brian and get the information. And I have some other transportation matters outstanding that I want to get some feedback on, so we'll roll it into that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, Terry, that's a motion to hold to January 4th. A vote to hold to January 4th, which is a little different than we've been doing. Four Corners Mini Roundabout, design construction. I know town, I'm going to put you in a position here, you can always just back out of it, Libby, but I know you haven't made recommendations on, well, actually, that's school stuff that you haven't. What's the ranking of the town administration on this project?
I'm not sure why it's not in there. I'm pretty sure we did these.
I think it would have ranked high.
Yeah, I think it would have, although I will say, though, that we need to have a meeting with the school about this.
Yeah.
I spoke to the school yesterday.
About this?
I didn't speak to the school committee, I didn't speak to everyone, but I met with Michael Kozer and Diane, the superintendent, and Diane O'Neill, the facilities director. We discussed the other items that I mentioned earlier during the meeting, and I happened to touch on the Four Corners. And basically, my read on this project, I'm just going to say it, is we have a lot of capital expenses coming to the town in the next 10 years, and I think that we have a duty in every regard to demonstrate that we're being responsive to part of our job is to prioritize these capital requests. That's actually our job. It's like literally our description now.
All right, I have an
Okay,
answer to all that.
so it's our job to prioritize these things and make recommendations on them. So having said that, I think that there's an opportunity for our committee to, in doing its due diligence and doing its job, to advance those things that other people within the community widely see as needing to be fixed. Because there's I think categories of capital needs that are things that are visible and everyone sees and they know needs to be fixed, and they wonder, well, why the heck isn't that ever done? And then there's a whole bunch, perhaps the vast majority, are requests that they never see and they don't really know about, but they still need to be done for the town to function and operate the way that we want it to as a community with long-term outcomes and goals. So this project represents to me an opportunity to use money as soon as possible to fix a problem that everyone believes needs to be fixed in some way, shape, or form, and develop credibility for what's coming down the pike, which are a lot of projects that they may never see that they still have to vote in favor of. And when I say credibility, I mean credibility in this group as an institution, in the town as an institution, to be moving forward projects that need to be done that are in the community's goals. So it's a very broad statement, but I think this was the opportunity to make it.
What did the school say?
The school was like, yeah, let's. We more specifically, Michael mentioned that earlier on in his tenure, there were one or two members of the school
Bingo.
committee who were against it. However, they are no longer members of the school committee. And that
I thought one of them still was a member of the school committee.
But he's slow, he's softened.
Yeah. So there was support from, I'm not saying that they voted or signed anything in blood, but there was,
Support.
They understood the concept.
Okay.
They understood the need at this particular intersection, and then the broader concept, and they were both in support of it.
All right.
Do you want me to slow
You got
down?
a minute for Nat's comment on this now?
Yeah.
Okay. This is like First Way. Been dealing with this for 12, 13 years. This has been going on since before the roundabout that we have. Libby's right. There were some other members that were totally opposed to this. We didn't have the land from the hospital on paper written in agreement to move that house. I'm talking about the big one on the corner of Prospect. We had the tree issues. We had needles sticking out of the tree. Everybody's worried about the tree. Then we had the turning lane. Then we had the realignment option. Then we had two different roundabout circle sizes. This is not a no-brainer one like Fairgrounds to Old South, or the Bartlett one, which was not a no-brainer either, but now it sort of is because of the diligence and the land acquisition. There's a lot involved for this. It's the most important one, Steve, but it might be the hardest one. So that's why it's, in my opinion, number 4, because of a variety of reasons. It's number 1 in my heart, but number 4 in reality. Number 1 is Bartlett to Surfside simply because its process is ready now. It took a lot to get that ready, and that's in the tip queue. The second one, in my opinion, is Fairgrounds to Old South, simply because of the simplicity of doing it. We have all the land. We don't need any takings at all. And the activity that's going on in that area, it kind of requires it. The third one, in my opinion, is the Milestone Rotary reconstruction realignment to create it into a roundabout and get rid of the stop signs and the free-for-all that goes on there. And that was the original, and Mike doesn't like when I bring this up because it was pretty scary. But when that first got brought up, it was before we were ready for a roundabout on Nantucket. Nobody had ever traveled to Europe before and seen them. It just nobody knew what it was. So when that got brought up, the first time when Arch McCall was on the Planning Commission back then, it was so resoundingly defeated. It was the guy from North Island that came here had to leave on the next boat. It was unbelievable. Now we're all set to go because we have absorbed the fact that they work, Steve. And I'm trying to give you, like, you've been here a long time, you've been through a lot of this stuff, but that's the reality of it. And the reason I bring up First Way is because First Way was totally opposed 13 years ago to ever have one wheelbarrow of asphalt on it. Guess what? It's got a lot more than a wheelbarrow now, doesn't it? And how many of them people, why aren't we doing it? Well, they were against it. Like people that are against things don't even know that they flip-flopped. Roundabouts were part of that. Now we're ready, but doing them is another story. So I think that, I think we do need to get clarification from the school, though. Libby's right. We need to get some kind of formal vote and process back in place. Do you agree, Libby, with the electric meter? Because that electrical stuff on the corner is on school property, and that's going to have to get moved.
And that's huge.
It's a big, huge. That's like the
like a
Comcast
hub
building, hot artery of wires that go into that little thing there. So there may be a new design that Mike knows about that we may not be familiar with to move the circle more towards Atlantic Avenue direction. I don't know.
Yeah,
Because that was all part of it too. There was going to be a turning lane to avoid moving that box.
the conceptual. Okay,
A
so
lot of stuff in there.
yeah. The telecom, all the
So-
telecom. There's a primary trunk right there for the telephone services. That's actually one of the more complicated ones.
Yeah.
The other ones
Yeah.
are not. It's a bunch of power wires. It's moving wires. This is actually moving individual wires and reasserting all the communication connections. So all that said, now I don't disagree with you, and I appreciate your pointing out those things that need to come into place. But what we have in front of us is a request for FY19 design, which I presume is to implement all those different things and get the ball moving for what's forecasted as an FY21 build. So I think that's where we are.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Can I make a motion to approve this, to recommend this?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt you. I know we were.
No, I
we were
appreciate
getting
it. I appreciate it. Keep going.
Jason wants to do good, like the sticker says. And I agree. It's just not as easy as it looks.
there. But we have to start the process, and this will push this.
Yeah.
This,
I mean,
Make it safer.
yes.
That's my goal.
Okay, so
wish you were here for those other meetings.
we're over to school playgrounds, and I actually took this one. I think that I would entertain a motion if there's no discussion on the actual substantive aspects of the project to hold this to January 4th for some further discussion. Brian, about the funding sources and because fundamentally, if the funding sources were able to be changed, maybe I'm not getting this all technically correct, but you're going to get my gist, is that if we were able to do this in a way that it could be funded from the existing school bond appropriation authorization, the work could be, the request could be changed for a single year ask, and as a result, there'd be almost a $200,000 decrease.
And pay 30 years of interest on it. I mean,
Yeah.
realistically, it doesn't, I don't know if it can. I mean, I suppose I would say this, if we realistically initially thought it could be funded by the borrowing, we probably would have recommended that to be done. Secondly, I mean, you'd be adding at least 20 years of interest to $1.2 million, or to this number, right?
Yeah, but what's the school bond rate versus what we'd be paying for anything else? Because we're not going to pay this off in 10 years in any event, no matter what we do.
But the $400,000 that is recommended as a capital exclusion, so it's a one-year payment.
But it's 400,000 this year, 500 next year.
And we would deal with the funding source next year for the 500,000. I mean, that's, I don't know if it fits in the article. I have to ask bond counsel. I don't know that that would fit with the way the language was written to build a new school.
Right, okay.
You know, I just don't.
I just would have liked to have had the discussion before we voted on it, that's all. So if there's not an appetite for that.
If you want to hold it and you get confirmation from bond counsel, but I don't even know if it would be a record that we would.
That you would recommend it because it's,
I don't know why I would want to recommend $900,000 of additional costs for 20 years of interest.
You wouldn't.
okay, so then
I guess is my point.
so then maybe we can just address this at this point is there some reason we wouldn't do a capital exclusion to fund it all in 1 year and save $200,000? I mean, if we're worried on interest for 20 years, why aren't we looking at, if we're doing a capital exclusion, why don't we fund it all in 1 year, save $200,000 versus doing it in 2 years?
Well, probably for the reason that this was never, that there was never the discussion to the depth from the schools, between school and town administration, on funding all of it in fiscal 18, or 19, excuse me. It was put forth as a phased project. So,
So that's a good rational answer. So
that's probably why.
So if we can save $200,000, I would suggest that we have a little more discussion between the parties involved, the school and you all, and vote it in on the 4th. I'm not in support. I'm just looking at if we can have some discussion. Let's vote the number then if it's going to be revised.
One of the questions I've asked you, Mr. Chairman, is if we, you know, a capital exclusion, there's a couple ways to do it, but one of the ways that you do them is you check whether you support that and whether you want that particular exclusion or not, okay? And is adding an additional $500,000 on top of that going to be something that then ultimately gets rejected and then there's no funding for anything for that particular project?
Well, and I think that's where.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that's where the
400,000
concept
might be
came.
more palatable.
Yeah, that's where the concept of funding it out of the school bond came up, was because it was already authorized, the appropriation was authorized, so it could all be rolled into one, and the end result would be a savings in dollars.
We also have to look at the fact that because we have potentially a little bit of room under there, we just continuously pack things that might be close to similar into it without anybody knowing what they were actually doing or getting and borrowing for.
Well, yeah, I don't think anyone should be authorizing anything that they don't know what they're voting
No,
on.
I mean, I'm talking about in terms of adding playground equipment, which,
Yeah.
and all of this into a borrowing that was presented as for building the school.
Okay, let me see if I can do this a different way to expedite. Just, do you see a path that may be workable where this were to be funded in 1 year in order to save a couple $100,000? And if you do, then just a yes or a no, and then we can vote. And if not, then we won't bother. Because there's nothing, there's no reason to put it off.
Right, but ultimately, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation or the path about doing it all in 1 year is not up to me, it's up to the town manager, and that has not been something that she's asked me to look at. So to tell you yes or no right now, I
Okay,
would be fair to my responsibilities to her, to the town manager.
That's completely fair. I'm not looking to push you into a corner. I'm just trying to get the information, and if
I mean, if it's something that the committee feels strongly enough about, I would say that it's something that we could sit down about and discuss. And then if you would be comfortable holding it till the 4th to give us an opportunity to weigh the pros and the cons of all of this.
That's all I was
And
suggesting,
and
yeah.
some of it we just heard today, so I didn't even know that any of this was there. So,
which is why I'm suggesting we hold it. Yeah,
if-
okay.
If that's acceptable to you.
It's complete. I'm looking to you for information, so that's helpful that you provided it. Peter?
Where is the potential savings?
It's between escalation, the mobilization factor being there and not having to be coming back, and they also think that it's a bit fat. But they would be able to put all of it into one project and eliminate any of those three characteristics by doing it in advance.
Okay, so your feeling is good that would we have more of an indication of what that total cost would be on the 4th of January if we did it in one fell swoop?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the feeling I got from speaking with both Diane and Michael, is that they could kind of suss out where they saw the savings and adapt and revise their proposal. But it wouldn't be something they could do overnight. It would need a little bit of time, and obviously some from discussion from you, including, as I understand it, what you're looking at is how it would fit into the broader picture of what may or may not be approved at town meeting, which is completely valid and
goal
important.
is to
Yeah.
get as many capital projects approved so that we can move forward and go on to the next one.
Gotcha. Okay. Christie?
I was going to make a motion to hold till the January meeting.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
0. So Terry, 1-4. Okay. The central office edition?
That's Peter's.
I mean, my thought doesn't change. I look at it as, in more specific terms, forgetting about special education for a second. Why wasn't this thought of in the big project? Why wasn't it thought of in the big picture? In my mind, they as an entity had the ability to address it then. I think we spent some good money, which is great, and I think that the playgrounds is part of that master plan. This was never part of a master plan. This was never part of a thought process that I was told. And that's, I guess my opinion is also I'd rather see more money being spent on kids and education than now less on edifices and structure. I think we've spent good money on all of those, and now it's time to look at our operating budget.
Thank you.
Can I just ask Peter a question? Through you.
Yeah, please.
Wasn't part of the issue the final resting place of some of the administrative staff part of your concern? Because that's what I got out of it.
Well, that specific is because it wasn't mentioned at the beginning of the construction project. We're going to have to relocate these people. We
Right.
made moves, and we made things happen. We have moved people and
Yep.
gained classrooms, but this, on the committee that I sat on, which included Michael and Diane, was never thought of, was never,
Adding on to this building.
yeah.
Yep. I mean, because you kind of changed my tune. I thought at the beginning of this, I kind of felt it was sort of simple, you know, like no big deal, boom, bang. But then when, as you have brought up,
Operationally,
got-
I am micromanaging.
a little bit, but I don't think it's micro. I think it's more of the plug and play stuff. If they're planning on, because they've been very good at explaining everything they want to do, like way down the road to tomorrow. It's good.
Yep.
This one did get left out. I agree with you. The building itself, though, is not falling apart.
It's solid.
It is pretty
I mean, they
solid.
have
I've been
some
underneath
issues,
it.
but
It's good, okay? But if it isn't permanent, that's different. Is there going to be something else here? I know they want to do special ed here. Is that what the plan is? Like everybody goes and then they do something else?
No, they changed that.
Oh.
Actually, they didn't change it. I was, okay, may I?
Yeah.
When we had the initial discussion, and at that point in our process, we were actually doing some follow-up discussion, very at that topical moment. And Peter had brought up his concerns, and from the presentation, I misunderstood that there would perhaps be the principal in the school, or one of the school would be in the central office, that the special ed teachers might be located there. So part of why I went to the school, in addition to the Bacchus Lane playground and fields, was to find out and get clarification on just specifically what they're using this for.
Yep.
And what I was told is that it's, when they say administration, they're not talking about, the upper level type personnel other than office
Yeah.
for the special ed. So just to clarify that. And that there would be no principals or any other type of personnel that you would normally expect to be in the school are still located within the school. So just to clarify that.
And if I may, just dollar-wise, if they're looking actively at 600 square foot of usable space and not 1,500, if that's, then it's about $820 a square foot, which is...
And can I?
Sure, please.
So I had given you guys two figures. One is approximately 6, and it should be 600 to 800 square feet for the personnel. They're also looking, I think I mentioned a conference room, but I didn't break that out. So the total number that they're looking at is approximately 1,500 square feet as a wraparound to the existing structure. And then they would be dealing with addressing, currently they have a mini split heating system on the air conditioning and heating system on the outside of the building. So they would be looking at some type of a traditional central heating and air conditioning system. But the takeaway from that is approximately 1,500 square feet overall. And again, it's not either way, but just so you have the information. Further discussion,
You gotta
thoughts?
get like a motion. I don't know what to say.
I mean, was this ever, this was never ever brought up? I mean, was this put aside to make way for the new construction? And
No.
maybe we're
didn't
omitting
think of it.
something that was in the works long ago? I don't know.
Not to my knowledge.
Yes.
This
Yeah,
was like being-
I mean, this is a new request. It's not
Yeah.
a previous request brought forward.
I don't remember any discussion about it.
No.
Prior.
Yeah.
in my mind.
I mean, are we okay with putting this off? Is giving it a no for this year, kind of a question? I mean, that's how I kind of see it. I mean, I know Peter might be a little bit stronger about it, but maybe more information next year, or I don't know. It's not going to get more expensive.
We're getting deeper into what Peter's saying. We should start looking at the student development and programs, and
Yeah.
you're getting into the middle of that then.
And next year it's 4% more.
And next year it's 4%.
So it's, and, the other thing is, and we haven't really looked at this, and I'm not suggesting we do it here, but I'm kind of trying to not split the baby, is whether it's a full funding request or it's a partial funding request. We've done recommendations where we don't, if we, for instance, if we're dealing with, if we were dealing with some of these requests, I would have made a recommendation that we fund, a certain percentage of it versus the whole thing. Those didn't come about, so I didn't. But that might be an opportunity if we felt that there was a more palatable number that was based on a rationale that we discussed. We could always vote on a lesser number as a recommendation. I don't know. I think that they've probably vetted the number. They have a good idea what it is they want to put in it. They know the square footage. They know that they need to make changes to the existing structure. There's going to be there's going to be a certain trigger with the amount of work they need to do, bringing up energy code and other things, because they're doing the work. This is like our island home. You do a certain amount of work and it triggers building code requirements. So I'm hesitant to pare the number back, but at the same time, I'm looking at it if there's a solution. Kristen?
Yeah. Brian, do you know if this is an all-in number, this 500? Or if this is
Look, but I assume that it is.
Yeah.
I mean, is it just trying to wrap up this final project, this big scheme of things and this big plan? I don't know.
That's the feeling I got from the meeting yesterday.
I mean, they're not picking up the
I mean,
building and moving
if it was phased,
It's gonna
I'd be a
stay.
little more apt to delay it, but just with a one-time hit and getting it done, I don't know.
So it seems to be that there's a feeling, let me just see if I can summarize this so we can move on one way or the other. It seems to be the feeling that there may be validity in this as a recommendation to proceed fiscal year 19 if this is like whether it was planned or not, unfortunately not, it seems, that this is like the culmination of the structuring of all the administration offices and the bigger plan, so that there aren't capital requests coming in for more building structures next year as kind of piecemeal. This is it. This is the
For this
I mean, this
spot.
Yeah,
could be the
spot.
excuse to say, anything else, we might be questioning pretty good.
Yeah.
This is the last little piece of the pie.
Yeah, this is the culmination of your plan.
And if we any more waiting, we're just getting farther away from this having
Yeah,
this big project done.
yeah.
If
I'll
as
go
Nat
with that.
says, if this is the final resting place of this department, and
This building,
Yeah.
that area, they
That
fixed
area.
the parking lot.
Right.
It's kind of it in that spot.
So then, where I would go with that is the next step is that we would need just some confirmation and clarification at that point, and as a result, in order to get that, we would hold this to our January 4th meeting to vote on and get a clarification as to whether, this is the culmination of moving office administration and those types of personnel around.
Be okay with that?
Is that, okay. Peter, would you, well, you're going to vote how you're going to vote. I'm just,
I would just,
trying to-
if I may, Brian, I was looking at the municipal building
Please.
list, and I couldn't find that structure listed under school department. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just as a aside, I guess. If you add $550,000 into, if you make a change that increases this, I don't exactly know how exactly we'll fund it. That the $550,000 for the school was not included in the funding recommendations that we've created,
Mm-hmm.
which then, I'm not exactly sure where we put it, or how we go about funding it, honestly.
Yeah, but that is, point well taken. I appreciate your mentioning that. I think it's very valid for us to consider. I think the other thing we need, we did ask that we evaluate the playgrounds and the field improvements and maybe making changes there, so that would involve in any event or kind of rejiggering of the recommendation if it were to move forward. So I think where I'm going to come down on it is, for our committee, is we need to decide whether we're going to recommend it for FY19 or not. If we feel that there's additional information that's substantive, then we should hold it and get that information. If we don't, then we should vote on it today. And we can vote whether we hold it or not, or we can, however we do it, but we need to make a decision one way or the other. I'm just trying to identify what, clearly Peter has some concerns. I think they're valid concerns. Christie has brought up some points. Nat has brought up some points. There is some potential additional information that's required for people to formulate a decision. Does it rise to whether they're going to vote yes or no today? I don't know. But we all, we need to move on it one way or the other.
I think we should hold it over for a little bit more information, not necessarily, I think it's more general, like what Christie's talking about, like this is, the plan they have to improve this building, because they're kind of just improving the footprint of land that they've sort of morphed into administration, whether it's used for something else later. I think investing in this spot makes sense. It just wasn't ever mentioned. I do agree with that, but this building's not getting picked up and moved. They're gonna stay here, no matter what happens with other land in the area or what, I would assume. And they're pretty good at answering those questions.
Thank you.
Is
And,
that,
yeah.
look, can you
I agree.
find that stuff out? I mean, would you agree with that, Christie, to wait till the 3rd or the 4th or
Yeah,
whatever
I mean,
the date is?
I based on the
I'm not
discussion-
against
discussion
it,
we're
I just-
having,
Said that too.
I think with a split committee, I'd love to know that we're more understanding of
Yeah, that's
what we
how I
want to
feel.
do. So, I mean, I would,
I'm not like rebuilding 37 Washington so that we can move finance back to town and sell the building. Like,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
fixing this to kind of work in other things.
Yeah. Is it incidental and does it complete?
I'm not even
complete the
upset,
plan?
I'm not even bad with unknowns, as long as that investment we make is something that's not changing as far as, the value of investing in that building, in that spot. That's how I see it.
lastly, I'm not married to it. I just want to understand that the committee has a good feeling about whether they approve it or disapprove it.
It's
And I don't think we're there right now.
point well taken. And an important one, too.
Yeah.
But I did want to, before we close this out, I did want to ask, Peter, you had asked whether you had asked about it being on the facilities list. I just was curious if there was somewhere you were going with that, or.
Well, just to address a assessed value and the thresholds that we would trigger if we have to spend more than 30% in 2 years under the state. But I can't find it on the inventory list, that building.
It may be different.
I looked under address, and I've gone under building description, department, I can't find it. But
Okay, so that might even be a reason for you, too, to hold to the 4th, perhaps. Okay, Christie?
I'll make a motion to hold to the 4th.
Okay. Do we have a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's unanimous. Or Peter, you voted in the affirmative?
Yeah.
Hold it. Yeah, so unanimous. Okay. Airport, we've got 2 left. So we've got the garage construction, which we understood was being held off. Have we not received information to that?
No, I see from you.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're deferring that. Bids came in a range that we don't think are reasonable.
Okay.
Are we privy to know where they came in?
Noah, would you mind just stepping up and Terry's got to keep minutes, saying your name and.
Yeah, sit here. Sit here.
Noah Carberg, Assistant Airport Manager.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you for joining us.
I believe that's public knowledge. Bids were coming in, not bids, rough estimates on the range of 1.7 to 2.2 million, which we don't think is commensurate with what that structure should cost.
Okay. And then what you're retracting, or are you just putting it into an out year and for subject to adjustment?
We're deferring right now, 2020 or beyond.
Okay, so FY20 plus. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And you're going to stick around in case we have a question on the temporary hold room?
Sure thing.
I just had one question.
Yeah, Christie?
No, I can't remember. Is the garage have utilities, or is it strictly a structure?
Minor utilities, electricity and some basic heating. I
Got it.
can't remember the exact system for that.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Jason?
Do you need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to not recommend because they're
Right.
deferring.
Okay.
Second.
No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so. Excellent. Okay, the temporary hold room expansion with the structured awning. And Peter?
Can we ask Noah to bring
Yes,
us?
please. Noah, join us at the mic.
Hi.
Hi, if you could just bring us up to date, if that's still the number, or we're looking at something different, and if so, why?
That's still the number. We have scope and feed due this week. I'm expecting that today or tomorrow.
Okay. And approximate square footage?
That's a good question. If you have a calculator, it's 16 feet wide by approximately 80 feet long.
Is it 12?
Thank you.
So, and obviously, it's not. Forgive me, Peter. It's not a. What are we calling this school building? A central office edition. Just to compare and contrast. But it is. I mean, there's going to be security. Just give me a brief on what
Sure.
type of security type. It's a very expensive small structure, and the justification is that it's fill in the blank.
So it falls under our airport security plan. Excuse me. We need access control. We need to run power and data out to 4 podium positions for each of our airlines. That's a big cost up. Putting it up and taking it away each year and making it, able to be rolled up and put away really quickly, rolled onto a truck and pulled off. I think these all factor into the amount for it. It's not like the seasonal hold room concept, I think, as it was originally spec'd, people thought more or less of a party tent. That's not quite correct. It needs something a little bit more solid in terms of walls, whether that's outdoor graded partitions or chain link that's fabric wrapped. But that was another cost escalator.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
If we're done with this, I just, at the risk of extending the meeting, I just want to understand what we're recommending of the $15 million Old South Corridor improvements for fiscal 19.
I'm going to ask you to hold for one moment on that until we wrap this as an actual vote, just for Terry's records and not to get my little brain confused. So at this point, we're going to pick you back up in a minute, Richard. Any questions on the airport hold room? No. Okay, Peter, did you have a comment? Not on that? Nope. Peter, do you have a comment on that?
I'll save my comment. I would make a motion that we hold off until January 4th, just to give you, Noah, a chance to give us a number so we approve the right number.
I'll second that.
Can I?
No, did you?
Just one little question for Noah, because we don't normally have someone standing there that has all these answers.
Yeah, but hold on one second. Just one
There was
second.
1 point.
Hold on 1 second. The dollar number, Noah, did you say that it was the same or it was changing? I thought you said it was.
He was
the same.
getting it.
I don't know which.
Yeah.
Okay.
I certainly don't expect it to go down, but
Okay.
it's not usually the way things travel.
I
But
just remember something at the
Go ahead.
first, when the airport manager was here. Isn't there other, like FAA funding a little bit for this, or potentially? Was there something he said about that?
we have to look into it. The potential mechanism is to reimburse part of it from future passenger facility charges.
Okay. Can I get a second on the
I
motion?
did, I seconded it.
Thank you,
Yep.
Christie. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then if there is some type of additional funding, we're also going to find out about it in our funding sources report that we haven't had a chance to review in terms of grants.
No,
and
I just
things.
don't want to hold him to the fire too much.
Yeah, no, I get you.
This was like number one in the way it sounded before.
Yeah, on his
We have
list.
to do this.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think we're not, Noah, just for I'm not getting the feeling from our committee that we're holding you on that as a lack of support. It's just a clarification of what the final dollar number is,
Oh, of course.
just so you're
absolutely.
aware. Okay, great, thank you. So I want to circle back to Richard's question.
So the total $15 million south corridor improvements in fiscal year 19, we're recommending about 1.1, 1.2?
No. So, okay, so this was, I don't want to get sidetracked again. I let myself go there the other day. Nat, I support this project. It's not a question of that. This is
looking
a
at the
different,
way it's on
yeah,
the
this
sheet.
is a financial thing, this is a different animal. What we're funding, the request, so if you look at the right column,
Yep.
rightmost,
Yeah.
FY19, they're asking, let's just call it $15 million
Yeah.
to save our breaths.
Right.
So what we voted to recommend to support is that we will support the request for the $15 million for the scope of work under the left column department requests
Okay, all right.
for the
That's
schedule
clear.
outlined in the
That's
years
clear.
that are there.
Fine.
Yep. And then the reason it was important for me to have these all here under the applicable counterparts and separated is for our own tracking and discussion as these things roll out.
Okay.
And
No
the
worries.
thing that I'm going to follow up with Mike on is, and apropos comments Jason made, are what of the bike path stuff on Old South Road and the pull-offs can be moved up, and how they kind of got populated in here. All right? Okay, any other discussion on the actual requests? Something anyone missed? Okay, good.
So we're actually going to put at town meeting a warrant that requests the borrowing of $15 million for the total appropriation, borrowing, whatever. For 15.
Request an authorization to borrow $15 million
Okay.
for improvements to Old South Road corridor.
Yeah.
And just while we're on the topic, and we don't have to discuss it, but I mean, one of the things that I think we haven't had the time, what I was referring to earlier is we haven't had the time to discuss some of this stuff. And my concern as someone who supports these projects is how they're presented at town meetings so that they get voted in and approved. I mean, we tend to believe that capital projects don't get called and they get approved. However, we also know that capital projects that get approved at town meeting don't necessarily get voted in at the ballot box. So I'm just concerned that by doing it as a block and not knowing what the priorities are for these individual groups, for instance, Old South versus Milestone, that we are not going to be prepared if we need to move fast on as a community on the floor of town meeting, so that the baby doesn't get thrown out with the bathwater. Which is to say, the Old South stuff might still get approved, and the Milestone Road stuff might not. So that's going to come down to how it's presented to the voters and followed through.
As
But,
amended.
pardon me?
Just talking
No,
to
I,
myself.
okay.
This time.
It's, I mean, it's a concern. I think it's a valid concern, but it looks like it's not going to be in our hands.
I actually am
Please.
in complete, wait a minute, a complete agreement with that point. About, there are 3 items on this list that are pretty unlikely to happen exactly how the picture shows, in the better list. There are 2 different solutions to this quote-unquote pulpus issue. There is debate on leaving Monomoy the way it is. There's also a bike path that goes from the foot of, I don't want to, how do I say this? The foot of the harbor side of the Milestone Rotary, whatever, up to Pulpus Road. Now it goes all the way to the bike path crossing of Pulpus to the water company cut through, which is, to me, the greatest idea I never knew about, that's supposedly 20 years ago, which I didn't even know, okay? Actually, over 20 years ago. Scary. Beautiful idea. That's all in this little stuff in here that you don't see. So I do agree with you about this, but I still feel that Brian's way of explaining the placeholder and individual approvals of some of this stuff, it doesn't mean we're approving this stuff all just happens like one fire station or one school building. It's different than that. And I think that that's a big important thing, because if we went with individual things to town meeting for one appropriation for each one, the town meeting would last a week.
Yeah.
Like, we have to have a way of explaining that appropriation versus writing a check. I don't know what that looks like on a override, though. That's a good question. I don't think we actually talked about that this whole entire time.
That's
It's a
why
right
I'm
this second.
trying to get to stuff.
Is
we're
that,
not doing yet.
even if we're not borrowing, does it still have we have to go to the ballot box for the 15 million, even if we're not borrowing it?
As a debt exclusion?
Yes, because you would be voting to debt exclude the entire 15, up to 15.
We're given the authorization for the Board of Selectmen or the whatever
Giving the
to do
authorization
that.
for us to raise some of the taxes once we borrow the money in.
I still think it's the only way to go. I don't see another way
Yeah.
to do this. What do you feel, Jason?
Yeah, of course, I'm for
I know
it.
you're for it, but we're talking about the perception issue now.
I think we can.
Which is
I think we
bigger
can
than
explain
everything
it.
else.
I don't think we have to sell it. Selling it sounds like
Yeah.
you're leaving things out.
Yeah.
I think it's explaining it well.
Yes.
Looking at the pedestrian and bicycle and bus turnoff advantages of this. It's not just for cars. It's how really giving the whole picture.
And if someone brings up Richmond's paying, there's something on here that's not on this list that is on getting done. The whole Macy Lane Airport Road, we're calling it now. I know that the name's changed several times. That turning improvement realignment thing is getting, they're doing that. There's just one little land piece that hasn't been, answered yet, the private property owner there. But the other thing is the Amelia Drive mini roundabout. That may not happen. That was more of a solution, but there's like 3 different solutions. Sort of like, but the major pieces are there. There's 3 or 4 things that may not happen exactly how it's on paper.
That's essentially what we're doing.
But it's okay to, I
We're giving
think,
$15 million, and it's going to hit the tax roll over the next 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
I think explaining that's important.
yeah.
Yep.
A lot of things will come off. The state might fund some of the things on Milestone.
And also, I know that
A significant amount.
there was a misprint in the Civic League newsletter. I'm bringing up something that's important to this committee. I just don't
Please.
think I'm doing something.
Yeah, no,
I'm not in the weeds.
I value your
I'm still on the lawn.
We all do.
Brian, new taxes that are going to be coming on. New taxes. As we move down the road, there's going to be new taxes hitting the books, like Coffin Pit hits the books.
New growth.
I don't like using the word growth because that's not what it really is. It's reassessments of values that have increased, okay? I mean, growth sounds, yeah, but, okay. Graydon House isn't growth, they just fixed the property. It's been sitting there paying taxes for 1,000 years. Now it's just nicer. So, it's not growth. So, for what Jason is saying, I think it's appropriate for us, you, people that know what's going on, the Debbie Dilworths and the Bryans of the world, to explain to the voters that we have new growth, see, I said it now, new tax base that is not, it isn't stagnant, it's continuously increasing. That is the reason that the DIF we made that agreement to let that go, even though the Civic League wrote the wrong thing in their little newsletter. And they did, I picked up on that. And so I think that that's important, because we're asking for this much money, and some people think, why should I pay, or who's paying, is this, and yes, it's still the 80% plus the people that don't live here year-round, but I'm talking about new tax base that's going to be coming on as this stuff progresses. So I think that's I think that point is our, I think it's our responsibility to the voters to explain some of that good news, because we never hear that. I mean, that's what Cinder said. You know where I'm going, but I'm not going to say it. She said it right in this room. I just wasn't here, but I watched it.
Okay.
So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ned. It's helpful. The last thing on that is just, I know we discussed this, and I know it's, this falls into if everyone's responsible, no one's responsible. Is some, I don't know specifically how this is going to be written up in the warrant, but the descriptives are really designed for in-house communications and transportation, and there's some even confusion in looking at them amongst ourselves. For instance, the Old South at Amelia Drive mini roundabout and the Old South Road Construction Rotary at Amelia Drive. Two separate requests, both talking about Amelia Drives, one talking about a rotary, one talking about a mini roundabout. So the point being is that there needs to be some looking at the requests descriptions so that they translate more easily and they're clearer and they don't maybe bring up questions that aren't questions otherwise.
Right. In terms of writing that in the article for the warrant, it would be written in a way that is broad enough to allow us to do the work necessary within the Old South corridor, but not commit us to do something that we ultimately don't want to do.
That perfectly said. That's what I'm saying.
The plan may change. So, to the extent possible, we would be as descriptive as possible. But if I write in there to borrow for X, Y, and Z, and we approve that, and then we want to do A, B, and C, then we have an issue of how to fund it within the article. So, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Technically, it would probably have to be fund improvements in the Old South corridor and then have some other additional explanation of what they may be. But if we specifically vote for specific things to be done with the money, then that's what I'm tied to.
Got it.
Then it becomes somewhat, okay, so in your example with the two different Amelias, if we specifically put in there to fund a roundabout for Amelia or fund this, and we end up not doing one of those things because it doesn't make sense in the overall plan as we go through the scoping, then we're committed to that piece of the pot of that. And I don't know how people above me are going to see it, so it's just kind of broadly talking.
But you're bringing up exactly what I'm saying.
Specifically
so.
Talk about the actual article quite yet.
Okay. All right.
Does that
All right.
make sense?
Yes.
It does. In some ways it creates more questions than it answers, but it is what it is. Okay, thank you. It's helpful information, but it's some concerns. In any event, it's going to be a good project, and as long as it's done the way everyone thinks it is, and as long as everyone thinks the same thing, is really all I'm hoping that we want to get. Again, this speaks to the credibility long term, and the capital requests are going to be coming in down the pike in the next 10 years. Is that It needs to be broadly described sufficiently that the work can be done as it needs to be done to affect what needs to be done, but it also needs to be described in such a way that there's a community understanding of what the $50 million is going to pay for.
I agree.
And I think if we can get that to meet, we're going to be in good shape I hope, with the voters.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Committee reports. Was there anything, Peter, at FinCom? I know I might have asked you this earlier.
Yeah, they were provided a status report, and only one item was actually spoken about specifically, which is CMOM. But I believe that they were waiting for our final report when that time comes. So.
Thank you. Forgive me, I'm looking up for a calendar here because we have.
So our next meeting is on the January 4th, Wednesday. I'm not going to be here.
That's the 3rd.
Oh, it's the
3rd is Wednesday, 4th is Thursday.
Oh, good. I'll be here.
So Thursday the 4th.
Cool. Beautiful.
And
See, we have to talk about that for next year, hopefully. Some adjustments.
dates.
I'd love to.
Times.
Gotta do something,
The whole-
because my
the whole
life
9
is upside
yards.
down,
Jason.
Dad.
On the 4th, is
These
it
meetings.
8 to 10? Is that the time?
Yes, that's what I have, 8 to 10. Do you?
I have a Comcast license renewal meeting. I have to attend the select board appointee for that, so I'll have to
Select board.
leave.
Okay.
8:50.
All right, so we have a 8 a.m. to 10, and then the 10th, and then the 18th is being rescheduled. Okay. I think just in terms of outstanding matters at this point, I'll do some light follow-up of transportation, and I've got some other ones noted here for the 4th. And we're going to be needing, I mentioned at the last meeting, to pull together with the support of finance, Brian, you'll give me a Planet spreadsheet with the FY18 and then all the FY19 forward. And we're going to need the request, a text version of the descriptive versus a PDF that's not textable in order to transfer into our final recommendation. So for the different requests, and you have that all in your database, you can.
Yeah, we can. We will.
Okay, so that's what we'll need to put together a draft. Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts or comments before we adjourn for our Christmas break?
Can I just ask, department head requests for presents? I mean, definitely got to get, I'll be talking to Mike. We got to get Mike here for Thursday before. Don't you think?
Oh, I thought you meant Christmas.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Presents.
No, I meant,
$50.
presents people,
Yeah.
like Noah's
In
here.
attendance.
He can't answer all those other questions.
Send an email to him and tell
We
him.
got to get him in here. Who else do you think needs to, do you think that
At that point, we're going to be
Mark
past
Willett
it.
should be here?
Yeah, we're going to
Are
be
we-
past it at that point. You
We're
can
past
talk
what?
However you want, but January 4th, we're looking at a
All right, so
finalized
getting some,
draft.
all right, so getting some answers.
Yeah,
for
we're
the
going to need
meeting.
answers before then.
And by the way, my weight drive description last week was accurate.
Oh, accurate.
I am very proud of my staff level of, I was accurate with what I
I'm very
said.
proud of Nat Lowell.
No, I just didn't know if I was right. I hate saying things that I'm not 100% sure I'm right about, but I had to do something. There's nobody here to answer it.
He
So-
didn't use the third person. Christie, please.
Any movement on final report work over this next few weeks?
Well, that's what this. Yeah,
curious.
that's what this is all going to be about, and that's why I was asking for some additional
Okay.
support
All right.
services, and that's why my comment to Nat is that we're going to need to know answers before then, in a sense, and then get them distributed before the 4th.
True.
So that I can, I'm going to have to get a feel from the responses. I'll get a feel of whether it's an up or a no, and format accordingly.
Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, the most important Mike question, without question, is Sparks Avenue, right? Wouldn't you say that, Jason? Getting it's a kind of a gobbledygook
Yeah, I think it'll be a
thing,
quick response.
he'll be able to figure out the answer to that.
Just
Because
let us
Libby
know.
was right on the money. That has been going on for a long time, up to Nantucket Auto Body. And now it's sort of large, right?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, on the 10th, what's the, is that one of our last meetings on?
That is our last meeting to finally finalize the final recommendation.
Okay.
Which will be a final review and vote. It may be a vote to make some minor modifications and then send it out, or it may just be to accept it as it is.
So that's next meeting, January 10th.
January 4th is our next meeting, and then January 10th will be our final recommendation, and then sometime after we'll be doing something with a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom.
Is that for review of this?
Of our final
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
recommendation,
gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
Thank you.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Joint meeting.